God bless the sea dodders and all who sail with him. There. My captain has been sanctioned by Iran. Wow. So basically, they've done nothing then. They've just said a bunch of words that mean fuck all.
I mean, are you telling me that not being able to go to the glorious Islamic Republic of Iran is not a major sanction? You decadent Western swine! All hail the Grand Ayatollah.
Ignore it. She's been playing EU4.
All hail the Grand Ayatollah of Iran.
Iranian bank account or buy a house in Iran. Why would he want to? Why would he want to? Oh god. Oh, that's a funky drawing. The ship can't make any diplomatic visits to Iran. Well, I think we were well past that point. I don't think any RN ship has made a diplomatic visit to Iran in decades. Iran is offering free college to Westerners. Yeah, no thanks. Why would I want to go and study in Religious Shithole 101? And study how to be a religious arsehole at their religious colleges? That's just... no. No thank you.
But unfortunately, they're one of the few Shia colleges on the planet. Like, fully Shia.
Okay. Then that makes it worse. I don't have an Iranian fan base. I wouldn't want an Iranian fan base. The Dry Dock's official position probably on Iran is fuck them.
I suspect it's more no comment.
It's probably more of
stay neutral.
It's probably more of a case of you expect us to have a position on this.
Did you have an Iranian fan base? No, I don't have an Iranian fan base. There aren't any Iranian members of the Dry Dock.
You don't know that for certain.
I can be fairly certain, considering that I don't think the Iranians have access to Discord.
They do.
Oh, they used to, but they don't anymore. Oh, yeah, because they clamped down, didn't they?
And it's also a case of VPNs exist. Why do people keep forgetting VPNs exist?
Well, in that case, then, they're not Iranians. They're people who live in Iran who want to be free of the corrupt regime, because clearly they're using a VPN.
Anyway,
please ask us how you can detonate your local Catholic church today.
Indeed. I'd be happy to oblige on that request.
Hashtag anti-pedo. Off the radar.
What if Tomcats fight in Vietnam from 1974 onwards? Can they do a large amount of BVR against MiGs? I mean...
No. If the Tomcat gets put into service in Vietnam, you lose a lot of fucking Tomcats. Because the Tomcat isn't the aircraft you think of it as at that point.
MiGs over my mouse.
It's an unreliable piece of shit.
MiGs over my mouse. Look at all that look at all that Russian coastal traffic floating. Why is it floating? It needs to be not floating.
Well, fleet is not floating. It's they're simply all in a shallow harbour, so they've all grounded out due to lack of maintenance.
Fair enough.
No, I didn't get elected. Fuck.
Anyway, what was I going to do? Oh yes, that reminds me. I'm sure some of you have seen the preparations for the big one are ongoing. Some of you have no doubt seen the video I did with Dr. Clark on his channel.
You did a thing with Clark?
Yeah,
That wasn't a tease?
the first Red Fleet timeline video on
Oh!
Graf Zeppelinski. Like, that was the thing I did with Dr. Clark.
I've been busy watching his carrier development stuff, I've noticed.
Right, Dragon, have you got this war against Muscovy?
Yes.
Because I'm going to have to jump Burgundy as soon as that tree turns. September the 8th.
Is the reason. Excellent. Happy fleet noises. Yes, Graf Zeppelinski. Like, this can be shown because it's already been shown. So it's not a teaser. Yeah, Discord can be weird at times. It happens. Tomcats. Tomcat. It's a pity YouTube isn't paying me any money right now, because I could kind of use it. One of these days I'll get big enough that YouTube will start paying me some money.
You'll get big enough that YouTube will notice you.
Eventually, we'll get there. It's a slow thing, and I know it doesn't happen overnight. It just takes one of the videos, actually. It's Chair. What's my favourite military operation code name? What was it? Something like Operation... Oh, the name was a really funny name, but I can't remember exactly what the... Oh, good God. I could... Christ. If I can actually bloody remember.
Lionheart?
No, it was something funny.
Personal union with Muscovy.
If you think you can hold them, Dragon.
I am not dealing with this today. Fleet is...
Yes, questions, things, stuff to do.
Yeah.
Or else I'll start
Okay,
bugging Fleet about my own stuff.
Like, if you guys don't give me questions, they're gonna force me to review ships from Drake's Drum. I don't want to do that. Yamato versus Bismarck, Yamato wins easily, always, every fucking time. It's not even a bloody contest. The only thing Bismarck can do is run. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Congratulations on passing your commercial pilot's exam. Honestly, 2-on-1, Yamato still has some chance of winning that fight.
I still give it to Yamato.
Queen Elizabeth versus the
Yeah.
Bayern. Basically, flip a coin.
Queen Elizabeth.
No, flip a coin.
No, that's Queen Elizabeth.
Not a coin flip.
Yeah.
The Kiwis are protected from their own guns, Bayern isn't.
They can still hurt each other though.
Yeah, but
Hurt,
when
but
one's protected...
one can kill, one can hurt.
Yeah, Kiwi's
Yeah.
protected from her own guns. She's not protected from Bayern's 15-inch guns. Bayern's 15-inch
I'm
guns
pretty
are
sure
more
she
power.
is.
Bayern's 15-inch guns have more penetration than the 15-inch 42.
I still give that to QE, easy.
No, it's a coin flip. Both ships have the capability to win that. It comes down to how they're handled. So for me, that's always a coin flip. Yamato Bismarck, which ship has a better anti-aircraft battery as built? Definitely Bismarck. She's got medium.
No.
She's got light, medium, and
37
heavy
no.
AA.
The 37mm is barely an AA gun.
Yeah,
It's
but that's
lit-
one component of Bismarck's AA.
It's a good chunk
Well,
of it.
let's see. Let's see.
Kind of
The
invalidates the part.
88. Let's see. It's early war, so the 88 doesn't have its effective anti-aircraft rounds yet.
Foxo, the Bismarck never carried 88s.
I thought she carried 88s, and is that Tirpitz that carried the 88s?
Perfect. Like, you
Tirpitz.
say that it's only part of it, Fleet, but it is a third of her
Close range
AA.
AA.
It is the 37s are a third of her total AA firepower. The rest going to the 20mm and the 105s. And the 105s also didn't perform that great. And the German 20mm are almost on par with the Japanese one, the 25s.
Right.
No,
You're wrong there, Dragon.
Yeah, you are not sitting there
You're
and
wrong there.
comparing the German 20mm, especially in the Flak-Vierling mount, to the bloody...
It's not a Flak-Vierling mount, though.
No,
it's
but...
not the improved one.
Even
the original.
even single German 20mm are just superior weapons, flat out, to the 25mm. It's not even funny.
But the issue is, the 105s haven't got an effective anti-aircraft round, so they can be discounted.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'd still rate her armament as better than Yamato's. She's got 20...
I wouldn't.
Because Yamato's
Quantity has a quality of its own.
Not as built. Yamato as built has pathetic...
But this question was never as built.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. Which ship has better
then,
anti-aircraft as built?
Even then, because you're conflating the German guns when they were on Tirpitz in the later war with the German guns on Bismarck.
I'm not. I'm using Bismarck
You
as
are.
built.
Because Bismarck as built, technically she has better guns, but the guns don't have the rounds they need to be effective.
Yes.
The Japanese, the guns are worse, but they have working rounds.
There are also less of them.
Yeah, I still take having working time fuse rounds over having more
it's
guns.
not even a contest. Yamato has 6 twin 5-inch, 8 triple 25s, and 2 twin 13.2s. Bismarck carries 16 105s in 8 twin mounts. 16 37mm, which I know are the shit ones, but still, they're there, and 12 single 20mm. It's still more lead downrange overall.
It's more lead downrange, but it's less effective range down lead.
Words, Foxo.
Those were indeed words.
What if the Russians finish the Ismails, and during the Civil War, the completed ones or the ones placed in Vladivostok end up in Japanese hands? Well, first off, no Russian heavy units were based in the Pacific after the Russo-Japanese War. The Russians did not base any heavy units out in the Far East. I think they had an armoured cruiser or two out there, and I think the Japanese gave them back a pre-dreadnought during the First World War. But as far as I'm aware, that was the extent of what was based out in the Far East. But if the Russians complete one and it ends up in Japanese hands, the problem you've got is that's a one-off ship. She doesn't use Japanese. Now, the Japanese have experience operating Russian ships, so there is that. So they have operated a fair number of Russian ships before this point. A lot of captures from Tsushima and from Port Arthur do end up in Japanese hands and are operated for a fair spell. So there is that experience there. She's a fairly powerful fleet unit, albeit a little slow to work with the Congos, but she's still a fairly powerful ship. You'd probably see her being retained. Definitely wouldn't be converted into a carrier. What she would get is some form of major rebuild, where she'd be Congoed, but more extensively. She'd basically have everything that was Russian taken off her and replaced with Japanese. So the Russian 14s would go, Japanese 14s would come in, Russian turbines would go, Japanese turbines would come in. She'd get a full workover, basically. To basically ease her operations in the IJN. And then she'd presumably serve with the IJN through the Second World War. how would a Mackinson perform against a Renown in its first configuration? The Mackinson is a better ship than a Renown.
No, it gets the 4-weight with it. Because if we talk... Right. Is it the Renown in first config, or Mackinson in first config?
Renown in first.
I think it's that Renown.
What?
Like, the Renowns are, this is literally the fight the Renown is built for, to be fair.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
The
It is.
Mackinsons are bigger. They're better.
They're... Right. They are not that much bigger. Their guns are worse
They're smaller
than the
guns.
15s.
They're smaller guns, but I wouldn't call them incapable of killing Renown.
I potentially would.
They're 13.8. Renown's belt cannot resist
Also,
that.
Renown is 4 knots faster.
That's as maybe, but the range advantage is not going to. I still think it like Renown can run or she can fight, but if she fights, she will likely lose.
She will win. Because she has, if they're both in their World War I config, she has the Royal Admiralty fire control system.
That's a good point.
Which massively outstrips anything the Germans have.
Also,
She
RBG
can
is pointing
shoot
out
further,
that
she can shoot faster, she can shoot more accurately, and the 1542s are big enough just to punch holes in Mackinson.
Oh no, I'm not denying that Mackinson can resist Renown's guns, but vice versa is also true. If it comes down to a slugging match, I think that extra turret is going to tell.
RBG is also suggesting the speed gap will actually probably be larger because it's the German planned speed of 28 knots.
Yeah, he's got a
As
point
was
there.
discussed with Clark of the other day.
Yeah.
Probably knock a knot on, maybe knot and a half off there.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And it's also a case of, you have the Mackinsons, they're good, but it's a case of... If your opponent outranges you, has the speed to maintain their range, and can accurately hit at that range, you're just a sitting duck. Because at the combat ranges Renown's built for, the Mackinson's guns will very much struggle with getting Renown's belt.
And Animarchy history is like, I like some of his videos about modern stuff and aircraft, but when it comes to his naval history, I'm not entirely convinced he's got the stuff.
I know he's a pop historian. Like, nothing against that. It's just, he does popular history.
Like, we all do, to be fair. I can't really comment, but it's just, I feel like I watch, like, for example, when Laserpig did that whole video on the duel between Cap Trafalgar and Campania, talked about cruiser rules, which is like, I was like, I had to turn the video. I was like, you're technically correct, the best kind of correct, but that's not what they were called, and no, cease. Like, they're both good historians, but just sometimes I want to pull my head out and go, no, please stop.
Yeah, because
like when it comes
Animarchy...
to like when it comes to history in the modern era, stuff I know nothing about. Like, for example, the war in Ukraine, modern tank development, stuff to do with modern aircraft, etc. Stuff that you can tell they're really truly passionate about. They know about. They've done the research on. Like, you can go and check their sources and shit. Like, you know, I'm like, those videos they make are fantastic. Like, they're clearly well researched. They know what they're talking about. My take on the engine of the T-14 Armata. I do not have a horse in that fight. I do not know enough. It's a normal ramblings.
So can I throw my horse in there?
I'd rather you didn't, considering how bloody vindictive that bloody
I think
thing
we'd
has
all
become.
prefer if you didn't.
Oh.
Well, what's the point of a ramblings if you're not rambling?
Well, there's
Exactly.
There's a difference between ramblings and, well, that debate.
Horses.
I'm pretty sure that was pretty I don't think it's much of a debate these days, though.
It
Because
It
the
got-
whole
it got-
kerfuffle.
it
As I
got
recall, the
re-
Russians have even stopped working with it now, so...
No, it's the whole
Yeah,
the whole
that's
engine thing. It got really messy because Laserbeak did a video. A YouTuber saw a chance to dogpile him, that being Cone of Arc, who I no longer watch because he literally took the opportunity to take a rip at somebody for no valid reason, just
No,
to boost
you're
his
missing
own.
an important. Right. There's a bit you're missing about that. It was essentially. It was Laser Pig and Red Effect ripping the shit out of each other, like they've been doing over the Challenger 2. Set of power, because apparently, according to that, according to Red Effect, that has the same engine on it as the Chieftain.
Which
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Let's check.
Yeah. And it's a case of those two are ripping shit out of each other, and then the pig made a slight mistake. Cone jumped him for the slight mistake.
and then
That
proceeded,
got sorted out.
and then
And then the big kerfuffle was with what Pigs admitted, is that it got very it became less of the actual sources, more of a pissing match.
yeah, but to be fair, that was I mean, to be fair, no one came out of the
And
no,
that was
no
because
one,
the pig's conduct
yeah,
as a historian,
Yeah.
not as
no one came out of that looking
not in
good.
fact.
But in fact, it was it was all there was historical debate, and then Cone of Arc jumped in. It was mainly his fault because he just decided to throw shit, and then everyone else started throwing shit because he threw shit. So it's all Cone
I
of
don't
Arc's
go that
fault.
far. It was already shit flinging between the pig and Red Effect.
Well, yeah, Red Effect's a Kremlin propagandist. What do you expect?
Yeah, it was still shit flinging. It doesn't matter who's flinging the shit. It was still shit flinging. I just said that out loud.
Next question, please.
How would you refit the Megamis if they survived World War II and became war operations for the French? I
wouldn't.
The French look at them, they scream, then they scrap them.
Yeah. Why would you refit these things?
They literally have no
Right.
use for the French
HK scrap
Navy.
metal.
They are literally more
Is it-
valuable to the French Navy as scrap vessels. That's literally their...
Or, I know what they'll do with them. Tow them to the French Polynesia and nuke them.
Oh no.
Potential?
Actually, yes. That's actually probably what they would do. I think.
Oh, yeah, that's probably right.
Oh, this is a brilliant testbed. Let's strap a nuclear weapon to it, push it out into the middle of the sea, and see what happens.
Whee! Boom!
I mean, that is an incredibly French thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's why nobody likes the French. Bite me.
Hey! Now you listen here, you little vixen. How dare you insult...
You just have you just have an obsession with Hoche.
No, I don't. I'm a bit of a Francophile.
Ugh.
You're not a
Thanks for-
Francophile.
Thanks for proving my point.
You're not a Francophile.
What do you mean I'm not a
Ah,
Francophile?
I won't finish that sentence.
Probably for the best not to.
Yeah.
Anyway...
Continuing on.
Give
oh, fuck,
questions.
that's right.
There's a few.
That's right.
Quite a
I
few.
need to keep checking my... fuck, I almost forgot. I'm an idiot. I have to keep checking the live stream. Because if I don't, there will be people asking questions and I will miss them. Let me just check. Come on, load. Rune
This
is...
wouldn't surprise me.
Phew, okay. No one's... Okay, no one's there
okay.
right now. Okay, good. We're
Right,
alright.
Rune?
We're alright.
Yeah.
We're alright.
We just had to worry about Rune somehow finding us again.
He's...
That's not too hard considering how many times they infiltrate the dry dock.
he's in the... He's always in the live streams, by the way. That's just...
That's expected.
Right, okay, I
That's
found a
okay.
way to do it. There we go. There we go. Okay, I'll put that
Right,
over there. Put
Right,
that over
Rune,
there.
my fella, if you're in the live streams, I have a question. How do you keep infiltrating the dry dock, and how do you keep immediately getting caught?
He's too obvious. Anyway, moving.
Swiftly on.
Why merchant raiding went so poorly for Germany in 1914 with so few ships sunk? Because the British were ready for it and had been preparing for it for ages. The whole reason that the German cruisers were released to merchant raid in 1914 and the liners as well is basically because they were there. There was literally no chance of them getting back to Germany, so they may as well do something before they get killed. That was the only reason they were released, to do that. And the reason they were out in the colonies for the first place, is because, well, they kind of, had to be, because, you know, colonial affairs and all that. What about, well, in 1914, the U-boat in 1914 is not the mature ship it becomes in 1915. Those boats are in the process of design and construction. The vessels the Kriegsmarine has available in 1914 are not suitable to range beyond the North Sea in any meaningful capacity, except for a very, very limited number of them. You don't see boats emerge in large enough numbers to actually range into the Atlantic until 1915.
This is a daily reminder, ranging into the Atlantic is very hard in a small boat.
I said Kaiserliche Marine. Didn't I?
No,
No, yeah, I think you just.
Oh.
you said Kriegsmarine.
See, this is what lack of Coca-Cola and alcohol does to me. I'm having to drink water because I have nothing else to drink. I have no money.
Oh no, he has to be healthy.
I have no money.
I mean, I feel like I shouldn't mention I've got a 2-litre bottle of Pepsi next to me.
I've got about a quarter of a bottle of Sailor Jerry.
Drakroom's Reaper asks, what if Impero was completed by the Germans? I mean, I would question how. They are lacking a lot of the equipment they need to do it. They're lacking a lot of the parts they need to do it. They also don't have the crews to run her, or the fuel to really run her. If she is completed, she sits in a North Italian port and does not much.
Gets tall boyed.
Basically because they don't have the fuel to run her. She's one battleship. Her strategic value is slim to none. If she sails, she dies. If she sits in place, she dies. She dies. So the German decision to not complete her was entirely the correct decision. Because it would have been a waste of raw material and resources. Brackman asked how to make a stealth A10 and why it should never be done.
You don't.
I don't know. I don't think
well,
you can.
Right, right. The whole point of a stealth aircraft and the whole point of a low-to-ground air support unit, kind of contradictory,
A little bit.
really. Where you don't make stealth versions of ground attack planes usually that support infantry.
No.
Yeah, because ultimately,
You basically
no matter what you do, it's still vulnerable
the
to
reaction in the modern era to close air support aircraft has been to make them cheap but effective. Things like the armed versions of the Tucano, the
Keep the pilot alive, basically. You don't care about the plane.
yeah.
I mean, that is literally the doctrine around the A10 though.
Yeah.
Once you get out of the titanium bathtub myth, it's, oh shit, we need to keep the pilot alive because it's going to be shot down.
Yeah, but even then, the A-10 was still well, it was and is crap as a close air support aircraft. It's a good light bomber, but as a close air support aircraft, it is a walking piece of trash. That gun is a waste of weight, and should be replaced by a pair of 20mm cannons.
It's excellent at scaring an enemy.
That's not what weapons are for!
But it literally
No, actually,
is.
doctrinally it is for air support.
That's literally the point of air support weapons, is to scare your enemy into an ineffectiveness partly.
Yeah, to scare the enemy into ineffectiveness. It's called morale.
Yeah, you can do that with a fucking artillery barrage. I don't need an over-glorified
can't.
waste of government money
You can't.
flying over.
Not the same thing.
I'll show further study for it, but it was proven statistically in both the Dust Bowl and Vietnam. Craft are fucking scary.
Oh no, I
There's
don't.
even
Low
World War
flying
II.
aircraft that are shooting at you are very fucking scary.
Oh no, I don't deny that, but it doesn't require that stupid 30mm waste of weight. A 20mm autocannon would be fine, or a 20mm rotary cannon.
I mean, admittedly, a Vulcan would do the exact same job. Yes.
And it would probably have the same level of bloody armor penetration, and it might not even.
No, it wouldn't have.
And it might. A Dragon, the 30mm.
It wouldn't.
Dragon, the 30mm Dragon, the 30mm can't even pierce the top of an M47 bloody pattern.
Yes, it can.
No, it can't. The test proved it couldn't.
Besides, that's one of the biggest enemies on this. The A-10 wasn't designed to kill tanks. It was designed. The gun was there in the 70s and 80s to kill BMPs, and it will quite happily shred a BMP
If it hits it.
or a Bradley.
If it hits it.
That's what the spread's for.
If the pilot can find the target.
Yeah, but
If the plane doesn't get shot down before it reaches
Yeah,
the target.
that's
If Russian
that's
shore doesn't kill it.
anachronistic.
A10 bad, nothing you can say can
You're-
change my mind. You two are flawed. You've been
And
bitten
this
by the
is why
reformers.
Fleet it gets utterly stupid at times because Fleet, if he's losing a point, he cannot understand the reality where he might be wrong about something,
I'm
or it
not-
might be
The
more
A10's a crap
multifaceted,
The
or
A-
it might be more multifaceted than he initially thinks.
The A-10 is a decent light bomber nowadays. It would have been the worst CAS aircraft in human history if used during the Cold War.
No, it wouldn't have been. Because if you look at it doing modern CAS runs on the modern battlefield,
You mean shooting?
not a CAS
you
aircraft.
mean shooting people in the sand in Afghanistan?
but that's part of the A-10's point. Part of its design criteria was for secondary theatres.
I mean, but Iglas are just so cheap.
Yeah, all it takes is a Taliban with an Igla and boom, A10 gone.
Well, you can say that about a lot of different things.
You could say that about any helicopter in the US arsenal.
Yeah, but they
Or
can. Yeah,
Not
but
any-
really, because
the
you can-
Apache hides behind
You can
cover
stand off a
and
lot.
No. When the Ukrainians are engaging and destroying KA-52s,
They're flown by
Stugness.
Russians. The people who can't.
but
fit
that's
it.
the point.
Yeah, because they're
Right.
not using their stupid infrared warning devices.
And also, they're
You should
flown
not be
by
able to shoot
Russians.
down a KA-52 with a
They're flown by
Stuka
Russians.
if they know what they're doing.
They're flown by
Okay, yeah.
Russians. Russians who are stupid because they're Russian.
Well, no, that I will fight against.
Yeah, Fleet, you are.
Russian
Considering Fleet
state, the
normally says
Russian
we're the
state
ones
can
who
be
are- who hate them.
stupid. The Russian state can be stupid, but the Russians aren't retards. They can and have done a lot of.
They can be, but at the start of the war they weren't.
Yeah, but anything that's low flying is free meat for a prepared anti-aircraft. net.
obviously.
We've known that since well into World War II.
Yeah,
Like,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Why
not
are you
special
this
to the
giant
A10?
brick of a
yeah. This is the thing. Why, like
slow moving?
like, I'm not
the
saying
gun
that
is
the-
for direct.
Yeah, like we're not saying that I'm not saying that the concept of a close air support aircraft is bad. I'm just saying the A-10 was the worst option the US could have gone with.
I don't think it actually.
No, it wasn't.
There was another far better option that wasn't picked because it didn't have that stupid 30mm gun. That was a lovely
was?
lean aircraft. What was it? It was the other way. It looked like an American version of an Su-25. It would have been far better.
Which
Oh,
is.
you mean the
like-
one that was a maintenance nightmare and was rejected because it was predicted they couldn't keep a readiness rate above 20%. The one that had variable geometry.
No.
No. I think someone's mentioned the Northrop YA9.
Yeah, the YA-9, I think.
No.
Yeah, that's the one. The YA-9. Look at that! Loads of bomb racks under the wings, actual sensors in the nose, no stupid
guess
minigun. Nice,
I mean, that-
cheap
Guess
and
what? They actually
effective.
considered sticking the 30mm in it, Fleet.
Yep.
Reformers for you.
What do you mean,
No.
reformers?
That wasn't the reformers. That's just the fact that hey, at that point the gun was still an important part of doing CAS.
Yeah, but you don't need a
You
30
can fight against it all you want.
You don't need a 30mm. That was the reformers who wanted that in.
No, you kinda do need the 30mm. The British learned that the hard way. Because jets are that fast, in general, you have such a limited time on target, you need a very rapid fire gun.
So for the record, Fleet, the only reason the YA9 did not fly, its test prototype never flew with the 30mm, is because the 30mm was not ready yet.
Yeah.
It's
At
quite
least-
plausible they were going to stick the 30mm on.
At least it's got sensors.
Is their boat stupid?
At least it's got sensors to find targets.
Yeah, the A10 has
And
sensors.
also
The
has
issue
sensors.
is, they're sensors from the 80s.
No, it has a pair of binoculars and no IFF.
Yeah, how's IFF? Because it had
IFF
to
and sensors are two
operate,
different things,
operate in theatre where they had Patriot.
I mean,
Because Patriot doesn't give a shit on how stealthy you are. As the Russians are figuring out the hard way.
I don't quite see the point of a low-altitude close air support aircraft in that sort of configuration.
It was basically made because the army didn't want to accept that the age of the CAS aircraft was done and that army helicopters could do the job
It's
infinitely
not.
better.
It's not.
What was its role? What are you supposed to be able to do with an A10 that you can't do with some other system?
Essentially, the A10 comes about because the technology behind attack helicopters isn't mature yet. Yes, you can argue that it's getting there, but the fact is you need some form of frontal aviation. Because something has to be putting bombs on foreheads,
You could
and
call in
Why
other
can't-
there's a noise.
If you're going to
Yeah,
right,
but other aircraft can't do it because A,
or you
they're
might
a
not
part
want
of they're a part of the combined air battle. B, they're high altitude strategic bombers, and just look at Vietnam for trying to do CAS with them.
You can't call up Vietnam as a reason for why the B1 can't replace the A10, because the B1 absolutely can replace the A10 as a CAS
It
aircraft.
can't.
B1's not used
It-
for the same roles.
I'm so sorry.
One,
It's significantly more expensive, has a significantly shorter airframe life in the air. It's significantly more expensive to run, has a much shorter loiter time, and is built for very high altitude. Which we keep learning the hard way. You need to be low altitude to put bombs on foreheads, because it's all well and good.
Also, last I checked, the B1's usually classed as a strategic,
Strategic
not
bomber.
tactical.
Targeting
It's
pods
strategic
exist,
for a reason.
and laser-guided bombs exist. You
Yeah,
don't have to be
but-
low
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get around
but-
anymore.
Yeah,
But-
but why would
but
you
Fleet,
use a
but
strategic
Fleet.
bomber for a tactical bomber's job?
Fleet, when it comes to that, there's just one minor issue the US found out the hard way about relying solely on laser pods. Target confirmation? So to confirm, yeah, that's the right target, instead of, oh no, the infantryman's misidentified this wedding as a concentration of Taliban, and now we've just dropped several pave waves on a wedding.
I would point out that A10s killed
The
weddings
A10's
as well.
like strafed a bunch of British tanks. It's not.
Yeah,
Right, we're not saying
Don't-
the A10 has
target
not also
identification
done
from the air
No,
is a problem no matter what you're
Yes.
doing.
yeah, but
So
No,
I don't,
my
can't see that as an
my-
argument against
point is-
doing
but,
mid
But,
altitude.
but you're still
Yeah, but
suggesting using...
strategic
Right,
bombers
you're what-
are even
right.
more
I'm not saying strategic,
vulnerable
I'm
to
saying
that.
something
What you
like
are
Tornado.
actively-
Yeah.
Right, Tornado might
Yeah.
work, because Tornado was actively used in this role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tornado. Yeah, Tornado was designed to fix the issues with existing close air support
But
in
the
the British Air Force.
Like, Tornado, that is an actually decent counterpoint, Chair. Suggesting using a B1 Lancer, though...
Oh yeah, no, that's stupid.
Yeah,
what
which
I,
Link
my,
is suggesting.
my
I'm
suggestion
agreeing,
is I
Tornado
don't
makes
think
sense.
you need an A10 platform when you can either do it with a Tornado or an attack helicopter.
yes,
I mean, we're
I
seeing,
don't
we're
think there's a
seeing-
middle
I mean,
ground between
with
the two.
With the losses of Su-25s in Ukraine, we can see that in a peer-on-peer conflict, you can't use CAS. because
You can though.
the Ukrainian
Because
SU-25
that's-
fleet is just nearly dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, they started with 24 Su-24s, or something ridiculously low.
Yeah, but the Russians have started
And
with
we
100
know-
and they're down to like 5.
No, they're down to 2
They're
wings at 24. They're down to 24 active service.
Even so,
But that's due
still,
to lack of spares and replacements.
the Russians
because
have lost
the
like
sad
100
fact is-
SU-24s.
Yeah.
They have.
And do you know where that is? Do you know where that is?
Actually, so
Because-
since someone actually brought this up earlier as an actually excellent example, why would you use the B1 Lancer fleet when you've got the F-111 Aardvark?
Oh, well,
They-
we
yeah,
don't
they are
have.
The
not-
Aardvark's complete shit.
We don't
I
have
will
the,
fight to the death of that.
I would not argue. Yes, but it's still more suitable for a casserole.
We don't have the F-111
In a B1 Lancer.
Aardvark anymore. By that logic, you can use B-52
But
for
it's
CAS.
still-
Yes, you can. A lot of CAS.
No, like just no.
Yeah.
Yeah, B1. The B1s are used for cruise missile strikes for SAC early on. Yeah, but one of the fleet suggestions was you instead of using A10, use B1 Lancers for close air support duty.
It's better than that flying shitbox, the A10.
It's not.
No.
It, like, Cher actually brought up a decent point with the Tornado.
Tornado.
Oh yeah,
actually makes
completely. Like
some
things like F-15, Tornado, F-16 are even better than the B-1 for the job, but you can use a B-1 in a pinch.
It's
Well, see, the issue is, when the A-10 comes into service, the F-14, the F-50, the F-15 and the F-18, they're all
Also-
high-ceiling fighters. Like, they're
How would
air
you-
superiority
Right.
aircraft.
I don't know why
This
Abaji
is
isn't
before
saying
the
this in the other
strike,
chat, but Abaji's also bringing up another point. Ukraine is also using Su-25's fleet,
But
Yeah,
yes.
to good effect.
and they're not suffering the same losses that Russia is. So your argument that the Su-25 is useless for their CAS falls apart when Ukrainians are using it for reasonable usage.
Yeah, but it's also... It's part of the CAS aircraft's job to get shot down.
Sierra SOF, just if you, what do you mean by SOF? Just quickly. This is not a term I immediately recognize. Special Operations Forces, right? Thank you.
Yeah. Whatever shit gets shot
Either
down.
way,
I feel like there's a fundamental disagreement here where both sides are right, but I feel like we have to move on.
yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
Cedar.
of course, I know I'm right. I know
So
I'm
am I.
right.
yeah, we'll move
So
Not
am
even
I.
going to touch that
We move
one.
on. Buccaneer
But
and Tornado
you're
better.
wrong. That's
you.
the
Yes,
issue. You're wrong.
Buccaneer, yes, agreed.
Buccaneer
Chair,
is the
Buccaneer,
best for
beautiful
that role
plane.
because it's
thank
just
you
a
for
brick
reminding
of an
me.
aircraft that goes so much. It goes
Thank you for
quicker.
reminding me. I'm
it's
actively
just-
working on a
it-
Buccaneer 40k conversion.
Wow.
Wow.
Like,
Counterpoint, the Tornado, like Ted
Yeah.
said.
Well, yeah. Tornado
Everyone
and Buccaneer are much
Tornado
better in
should-
these sort of roles.
Yeah.
Spitfire.
Like they did in the Gulf War. In Gulf War 1,
Yeah,
when
you don't- right,
it was
for the record,
Tornado
you don't-
Buccaneer
don't-
pairs. that
for the
was-
record, you don't have to ping your own questions. Fleet, if he's following any of its normal procedures, should actually get to them in good order.
Give me a second.
Because there's questions even before the ones you pinged, I'm pretty sure.
Gun destroyers.
Because yeah, weapon bearers can
Sid,
do by the
Reckon, have
Germans.
you
Then you
seen
got
the
the also
Infantry?
how are the German 128mm destroyer guns as dual purpose?
No, wait. We've still got Darth Sidious's question is first because Brackman's question on the A10 was literally just above Darth Sidious's. That's got to start us on that whole mess.
Where's
Brackman,
Sidious's one?
you caused the discussion. I
No,
blame you
wait,
for this.
where's Sidious's one?
Below Brackman's. See, I'm up in the
No, it's
chat.
not.
I'm up in the chat. I'm at the original.
Where
question.
are you actually? Where are you?
I'm where I
What time?
always.
What
I'm
timestamp?
1731. I'm where I always am. Where I was before.
Yeah, but 1715. Brackman, 1715.
Yeah, but
How
that
good a
wasn't.
German 120?
But that wasn't where I was answering questions from. I was.
So you're skipping his question.
I'm not skipping his question. He's reminded me of it there. I have a flow. Just let me work with it. I occasionally question.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
Because it wasn't.
You're supposed to
It wasn't.
cook my
Because thing is, it wasn't.
He'll
it
cause a
wasn't-
chip pan fire though if you let him cook.
It wasn't. Oh, fuck off! Don't cook chips in a pan. Cook them in the oven. Anyway, oh, for fuck's sake! This girl's doing this thing again. Oh, for fuck's sake!
Your stir-frying heals my soul.
Darth Sidious asks, his opinion on how the U-boat campaign in both World Wars could have been improved. Any suggestions with and without hindsight? Oh god, that's a big one. Well, in the First World War, you stick with prize rules until you've got a big enough submarine fleet, and you really start crash building them. You stick with the type. Problem is, without hindsight, the U-boat campaigns play out as they do historically. There's nothing. Like, without hindsight, you can't change anything. So I can disregard that part of the question. With hindsight, in World War One, you build some of the large U cruisers. You focus on the UB3s. Really start cranking them out as fast as you physically can, and start building them early. When you get to about 1917 January, you start unrestricted submarine warfare again. And you just carry it through to completion. Because that will bring Britain to the table. In World War II, the only way to improve the U-boat campaign is to give Dönitz what he wants. Give him the steel he needs to build to ramp up U-boat production in a huge way in 39-40 rather than 42. And that may actually bring results. Whether or not it'll bring Britain to capitulation or to the negotiating table, I don't know. Brackman asks, how good were German 128mm destroyer guns as dual-purpose guns? I have no idea. Genuinely, I don't know.
Not good.
Depends. If it's the late war...
Late war mounts, they were better, but early war, they were useless.
Yeah, the 128 destroyer guns weren't dual purpose. At first, it was only in the late war that the Germans developed a mount for a dual purpose 128 that I don't think any destroyer of theirs ever got. And then this is all the shit about Cass that is all on a horrible discussion that I regret. Fucking this. Oh, bloody hell. There we go. There we go. Gunnery officer asks, how do you think the F-86 is better than the M15 over Korea, since the Sabre has a radar gun sight which made aerial gunnery much easier than eyeballing the shots? I think they were equivalent. I feel like the pilots on both sides were fairly skilled. You have examples of F-15 shooting down, sorry, MiG-15 shooting down F-86s. You have F-86s shooting down MiG-15s. Trade ratio was fairly equivalent from what I remember. I think they were... I think they were fair. The pilots were roughly equivalent. The aircraft roughly equivalent. It was a rare case where it was basically down to individual circumstance which aircraft won the engagement. Individual pilot choice rather than actual aircraft itself. If Fleet was in control of the High Seas Fleet during World War I, how would I change things? If I'm in control of the High Seas Fleet from World War I, I will stick to my historical deployments. I will have ships ready to counter Heligoland Bight. So I will not broadcast on my radio at all. It will be signal flags only. Even when in port, we will. The only exception will be, like, I'm basically gonna try and we'll smash the battlecruiser fleet at Heligoland Bight. So we'll have the entire German High Seas Fleet sail out the eastern German coast, go through the Danish belts, and then hook around the north, so that it's ready and waiting for the battlecruisers when they come in. Then we will have the battlecruisers sortie out from Wilhelmshaven to meet the British battlecruisers, and I will crush BT against the German minefields.
Right, Dragon, I might need your help for this one.
Once the battlecruiser fleet is destroyed, it'll still be 1914. The advantage in capital ships is close enough that I can actually go to sea, announce I'm going to sea, basically, and dare Jellicoe to come out and fight me. Because the advantage in ships is close enough that I can actually take that fight with a reasonable chance of winning it. Especially since I'm now the only one with battle cruisers on the field. And at that point...
Are you able to help us with this, Dragon?
And then at that point, once I've done that, I have basically... I've basically won the World War I war navally. Darth Sidious, if Ireland joined the war on the UK side and they changed the Battle of the Atlantic, Ireland was basically a co-belligerent in the war anyway. They were at war with Germany in everything but name.
Right,
So
right.
nothing
right.
really changes.
Can someone just looked into this point of Ireland to answer this?
Sure, but I think I
Because-
sum it up pretty well.
Well, because you get the British distracted in the Second Irish Civil War.
What?
Because you still have the more extremist elements of the IRA running about.
Well,
who attempt to overthrow the government because the government let Irish citizens join the British Army. If Ireland declares war on Germany alongside the UK, the IRA is going to go through with that, and it's going to be bloody.
but if it escalates to open conflict, then that will... Britain has, like, at this point, the Americans... Well, the British will have the forces to put that down. And help the Irish put it down.
Yeah, the issue is it's going to be a long, ongoing guerrilla conflict. Like the Irish War of Independence was.
What else is new? They're basically going to put down the active part of the conflict. And then they're going to give the Irish a bunch of guns and say, that's your problem now.
Yeah. If they do that, the Irish government implodes. Because Ireland, the Irish government successfully walks a very tight rope in not having the country fall into civil war until the 50s. Because people remember the Irish War of Independence, they don't remember the Irish Civil War that came after it.
I know that lasted for a
And
very, very long time.
Yeah, technically, it lasted up until the 80s, with the dissolution of the continuous IRA into the pathetic shell of its current self.
I mean, isn't the IRA being gone a good thing?
Essentially, the IRA
Very much technically.
used to be a good thing, now it's a home for neo-Nazis that sort of coast off what the IRA did in the Irish independence and their cultural significance.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, Dr. Clark. I mean, I've no doubt that his mother's probably watching, as I am Defoe. Defoe. But...
Who knows? He might be actually in the process of moving this time.
He may actually be moving now, yeah? Could be. Well, no. The IRA was never good. They massively...
No, the IRA was good.
The IRA
Yeah.
disrupted the peaceful transfer of Ireland to Dominion and then full independence, which is what would have happened if they hadn't put their foot in it and done the stupid decision of the Easter Rising, which was the worst decision in Irish history.
No, it wasn't. Okay, right. The IRA, as an organisation, from the 19th century, sort of mid-19th century, to the sort of 1910s, was a broad-spectrum political movement for independence.
Which is fine.
The Easter Rising was the culmination of shit British rule, where it couldn't get any worse for Ireland.
What?
That happened.
No, that's bullshit. Ireland wasn't starving or in a worse state. It was in the middle of World War One. there weren't people starving in the street, or there weren't British troops going
What?
around gunning down Irish
fleet?
people. It couldn't get any
Fleet, let her
bloody
finish.
worse.
At least there was. Right. It couldn't get any worse because, yes, Ireland was no longer in the potato famine, but shit hadn't improved since then.
Yeah, as a
Like,
lot of people are pointing out,
standards
the
of
sta-
living was just above starvation,
But they weren't
not
starving.
ration.
which led...
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
large parts of the rural population was starving.
I feel like they jumped the gun. They weren't forced to get on boats, and so was everyone else in the Empire. We had
Yeah,
everyone.
you
had
also had the enforced conscription, which is part of the reason that was a good reason you had the pan-Irish support for the IRA. And it's just a case of the IRA of Irish independence was a unanimously good thing. It led to the Irish state and Irish self-government rule. At the establishment of the Irish state, all the moderates, the liberals, the conservatives, the socialists, they split off from the Irish government and what we now know as the Irish Parliament and the Republic of Ireland. The more extremist elements form essentially the second generation of the IRA, which is the one you think of when you hear of the IRA.
The thing that I do feel like they kind of like things would have got better quicker if they hadn't, escalated the situation with the Easter Rising. It caused a lot of unnecessary death. Like,
you can make that argument, but
like I'm not saying British rule was great. It wasn't.
Yeah,
But I feel
it was
like
a case. It was a pressure cooker that finally burst.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone could agree that if Ireland had gone to a dominion as a full island and not split in two, and then had gone...
never happened.
Oh yeah. Although to be fair,
Because the extremist elements in the IRA
and the
and stuff
idiots
like
and the idiots in Northern Ireland, the bloody
No.
Ulster Volunteer
Oh
Brigade.
god,
Yeah.
I'm
very
not getting
careful
into that
with wording
complex
here,
kettle of
please.
fish.
I mean, Northern Ireland is everything wrong with Ireland. Anyway, moving on.
No.
Oh.
You say to someone from Northern Ireland?
Well, lots of the extremist parts of Northern Ireland. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's an ethnic conflict fleet. It's full of extremism.
Reeks of it. Now, what's this got to do with warships?
Where in 40k would you like to be? Give me a governorship of a
Realm of Ultramar.
of a normal imperial world, somewhere in Segmentum Solar.
No, because that's a web of intrigue and murderfuckery.
Problem is, Realm of Ultramar is being fucked right now.
No, it's not.
It was fucked by the Tyranids, and
And then Chaos showed up.
No. You're mistaken here. That was the Realm of Ultramar before Gilliman came back. There is now 500 solar systems
Dragon,
in the Realm of Ultramar.
Did you miss the
Only
whole...
part of it is being affected by the Plague War, and the Tyranid threat is not actually in the Realm of Ultramar, it's elsewhere.
I mean, I suppose, but... I mean, although actually no.
Also,
no,
of all places in the Realm of Ultramar, in the Imperium, Realm of Ultramar is still one of the nicest places to live.
Oh wait, hang on. If I'm allowed to be in 40k, fuck it. I'll go and be a human in the Tau Empire. It might not be perfect, but it's definitely better than the Imperium.
No, it's not.
enjoy castration. Like, jokes aside, enjoy chemical castration.
Genuinely, they will sterilize you or physically chop bits off you if as needed, and actively begin brainwashing. The Tower not a good place to live.
Maybe.
Also, be aware that
if I
if
would have
anyone
to-
even looks at you, you die.
I will point out that personally, I would live on Mars. Or is it? Oh, what's the one Cole works for? The weird Mechanicus.
Do you know how
I
little that
can-
narrows it down?
Yeah, do
No,
you know how
the one
little
that,
that narrows it down?
The one that Cole's from.
Oh, that is just the Mechanicus. It's just
Yeah, Cole's
a different
basic.
sect in the Mechanicus.
Yeah,
Cole
yeah,
is based on Mark.
yeah, I will point out that Cole has been
What was
with using soft power provided by Gilliman. Cole has been basically hoovering up various sects of the Mechanicum to make it move.
No, he
fabric.
always had, or he already had it before that.
Oh no, but he's
Yeah.
doing it anyway. He's increasingly doing it. He's trying to basically subvert the Fabricator General's
He's
power.
doing it legally.
Oh yes, Gunner Officer, I did answer that. But yeah, AMC Woods asks, what if in 1940 the German and Italian navies were stopped? Same rules as the previous two scenarios from last week's ramblings.
Forgot to take Saxony.
Where was that?
Helldivers
Which
2
nations
is
were-
40k
again,
in
sorry?
disguise. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Well, no,
Where's
it's.
that?
Helldivers 2 is definitely not Helldivers in disguise.
Wait, what? Wait, what? Helldivers
Ah,
2 is not
other way around,
Helldivers in disguise?
Sorry.
What's that,
Yeah,
Dragon?
no, well, yeah,
What's that?
it's not. It's genuinely not. If you want to try and say Helldivers is 40k, it really ain't.
I know.
Like,
I will die.
Yeah, it's 40k-ish premises.
I will point
But
out.
it's
I
not
would point out,
40K.
Sidonas, that you need to like the bottom two need to be the same thing. It's I will die for the Emperor, or I will sacrifice for the Emperor.
I will give my life for Emperor Stan.
Imagine if the
You
Emperor's
stand
name.
the Emperor?
Imagine if the Emperor's name actually is just something silly like Dave or Stan.
actually,
or
no, it
Steve.
was.
Jimmy.
Actually, we know his name, and it's not.
What is it?
Adam. Ain't it?
I'll need to find it. I'll need to find it. It's not Adam, I don't think.
Jimmy. Jimmy Space.
Steve.
His name is Jimmy Carter.
No.
Naoth is what he often goes by. That was his title back in the olden days.
Oh. my
He
God.
then decided to call himself the Emperor because names have power.
Yes.
And if one does not have a name, they cannot be controlled by these beings which try and take power.
Yes. This is true. Nobody expects the Holy Order of Hispania. Oh God.
So, I mean, it would probably be a bunch of horrific suffering, but being a fucking Titan Princess in 40k would just be cool.
I mean, possibly. I mean, if I'm gonna have to serve in the military, I want to be a
Be in the cavalry?
no.
When they send me off to
Die
war.
these pretty quickly.
Honestly,
I want
Uh,
a good steed under me like my forefathers before.
honestly, in
I
terms
want
of
a good mount when the bugle sounds and I hear those cannons roar.
in terms of
I want to be in the cavalry, but I won't come home no more.
would you say the 88th Krieg Siege Army could conquer Earth today? Okay, you have to qualify when. What form of the 88th Krieg Siege Army? Do you mean Lord Commander
If it's
Julka's?
just after Vrax,
Yeah.
no.
No, because is it no? Is it Lord Commander Julka's 88th Krieg Siege? Okay, so they don't have the air support Arnhem Kagori bought. They don't have the additional armored support Arnhem Kagori bought. They don't have the Titans Kagori bought.
Well, yeah, that's not the.
So,
Well, that's not. You know, the 88. See, Titans are always individual.
We're gonna get to you, AMC Woods. We're gonna get to you.
The Legio Titans bow to nobody except the Emperor.
So for me personally, I don't think they can. You're landing a fairly sizable force, no doubt, but it's using World War I style trench tactics against
Arguably, you could.
against a world that, quite frankly, like especially like if you're landing the siege army and you're not giving it orbital support, you're not giving it Titan support, you're not giving it anything else, and it's just the army plus the supplies it has, then you've got... it'll be like a 3 to 4 year slog to get rid of them. But they will be got rid of.
It would be quite difficult, to say the least, as considering as soon as you take into how powerful 40k weapons are.
I mean... Okay,
But the issue is, the 40k stealth siege armies are very good at taking large concentrated points, like hive cities. That is the current state of Earth is the antithesis to that doctrine, because everything's so fucking distributed across the planet.
The 88th Imperial Guard Siege Army is going to basically have to establish multiple fortresses of its own to then conduct operations from. And basically the siege regiments are going to have to basically sit in the defensive while the breakthrough regiments do most of the offensive action.
I would agree, but they won't be able to do... They'll be a hell of a fight. The problem is you are literally deploying a single regiment here.
No, the
basically.
Krieg, no, the 88th Krieg Siege Army is fucking huge.
Right. No, it's not.
It.
I've literally got the list up in front of me, Fleet. This is not a huge army by even small 40k standards.
What are you?
First line corps, 4 regiments. Second line, 4 regiments. Fourth line, 4 regiments.
Yeah, these are siege
16 regiments of infantry. They're not.
They are.
All Krieg regiments are called siege regiments.
Yeah, but they're bolstered. You are aware of how many men are committed, right?
Fleet.
You are aware of how many... You're talking about 5 million men.
Right, that's not much by 40k standards for even a single army.
Yeah, in 40k...
That's not enough by modern Earth standards.
And this is a full...
Like,
right, okay, maybe
we were literally mobilizing armies that big 100 years ago. Like, the French mobilized, what, 5-6 million?
No, I get...
In a month?
The point, yes, but this is all aiding my point. The point I'm trying to make is it would be tough, but we'd win. We'd easily win. Like, we have precision-guided ordnance. Like, we have satellite communications. What do you mean guided ordnance might not work?
Right, if they have got their knowledge of 40k, guided ordnance might not work. Against fortifications, and especially against the vehicles.
What do you mean, especially? Can you explain why?
Do you realize how thick the armor is on a Baneblade, or even on a Lehman Russ?
Dragon?
Modern weapons don't do too well against these.
I will also point out, nuclear weapon and fire a 2,000 pound bomb. I don't care.
Now, nuclear weapons might work.
And also, Dragon, I feel like you're putting a bit too much stock in exactly how armored these things are. Like, I would point out that these are the dregs of humanity's interstellar empire that have been dragged into the 41st millennium.
Which are from the 30th millennium.
No.
Like, the Baneblades are an issue.
The Baneblades are literally from the 30th millennium, Fleet, if not earlier. They are golden age of humanity.
No. We have confirmed they're not from. They're not from.
They're not.
They are from. We do know they are 30k.
No, they are 30k, but they are the creation of land. We know that from the 30k novels. They're not golden age.
No, the Baneblade.
On the other hand, 30k tech is still far better than what we have now.
Oh yeah, completely. But
we're
not talking about 30k tech. We're talking about 40k tech.
Yeah.
Yes, but they are still
a Lehman Russ versus a division of Lehman Russ versus a division of Abrams. That could go either way.
No, it won't. No, it won't, Fleet. As much as I wish to see it, you do know when the Lehman Russ was entered service?
Yes, it was only
30th millennium.
Yeah. But it was laughably. It was considered laughably pathetic as by 30k standards.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
It was. They considered
not for the army. It wasn't.
Dragon.
Yes,
it was.
Space Marines, maybe.
It was for the Solar Auxilia, who used it as a third-line occupation vehicle because it was enough to
keep in mind what they're occupying against.
Dragon, the point the Lehman Russ is basically a MBT, but 40k-ified with slightly
Right.
thicker armor. It's
Right,
not
Fleet, now start putting on plasma cannons.
Okay.
Yeah, but Dragon, I will point out, Lehman
Yeah,
Russ
right,
is
can't do shit, but
canonically
if it melts-
penetrated by bolter rounds.
Yesn't. Depends on
They
the
get
bolter round.
penetrated through the sponsons and through the front by bolter rounds from Space Marine bolters.
Sadelets,
depends.
don't bother asking for actual statistics. It doesn't really work with 40k, especially if you're asking for RHA equivalents. They just don't exist.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Because all it depends on if Earth can survive is which 40k author's writing this.
Yeah.
But I would still agree with Fleet that no, they cannot take Earth.
Because remember,
But
rather primitive and feudal worlds have driven off guard regiments.
Yeah. This is the thing. Right, where were we? Because I promised AAMC out. So now to get back onto naval history after the bit of nerd talk. What if the 1940 German and Italian navies were swapped? Same rules as the previous two scenarios from last week's ramblings. I'm sure, for those who don't remember, both navies get swapped along with whatever keels were laid at the time. And you've also got, whatever they need to finish whatever they're building. Well, first of all, Germany's gained, well, the Littorios might actually work because German shell quality control might be better. The Italians, the British have basically been handed. Anyone else got any thoughts? I could probably do some additional context here.
oh, right, so sorry, who's being swapped around?
Germany,
Italy and Germany.
Italy and Germany in 1940. Italy controls them. No, Italy doesn't control the Med. It's worse for the Italians.
Thousands of subs. Right, it's been
thousands of
proven though.
subs.
The Germans tried sending their subs into the Med. They died.
No, we literally
Yes.
talked about this last week. They didn't.
No,
going into
they
the
did.
Med.
A lot of the bigger subs did. The older ones, the smaller ones, actually did quite well. Submarines in the Mediterranean don't do that well.
But what I would point out is that the Italians actually had more subs than the Germans did during a large chunk of the war, because they had their stockpile built up from before the war. Although this degraded quite rapidly over the course of the conflict. But the Italians have lost 4 battleships. They've gained 2, which are more potent, but that's it. They do not have their heavy cruisers, they do not have their light cruisers, they do not have their destroyers, they do not have their large fleet of submarines. Yeah. Italy's fucked. Germany will probably hoard all the fuel to operate its fleet, its new fleet, and will probably scream at the horrific nature of the Italian ships that they're having to operate in some parts, and also scream at the low barrel life on the Littorio's guns.
Also, don't they sort of have problems as they can't really use them in the Atlantic that well?
Depends.
Well,
yes. They're
they're
built
long.
for the
They're
Med.
not really designed for long cruises, are they?
Yeah. Why not trade them back
Italian.
to the Italians then? It's 1940.
Because the whole, also,
there's a
the
war
whole
on.
point of these,
There's a
also
war
the
on,
whole point of these scenarios is also basically you're not allowed to just trade them back.
and also they
Because
can't.
otherwise, then what's the point?
Yeah, because war were
Well,
declared.
no, you could definitely trade them back. So, in various ways.
I don't know how you're getting the battleships back into the Mediterranean, Dragon.
Brute force, basically.
The
Except
British,
some losses.
the British are just gonna. The British are
Simultaneous
just gonna-
attack from both angles.
The British are just going to jump for joy as you've just put all of
What?
their
Just
problems.
what? Storm the Suez?
You've
No,
literally
why go through Suez?
You've literally just put
You said
all
both ends.
Oh
so
god, no.
Yeah, as in both sides of
Yeah,
the Mediterranean.
Yeah, Dragon, you've just
Wait,
put.
As in go through Gibraltar.
Dragon, you're
Mm.
going. Are you trying
Oh right.
to feed battleships to the Royal Navy destroyer squadrons.
Would be nice, but
Yeah, you're
no.
literally just giving the RN its dream right now. If that happens,
I'm
all
not
of
sure
their-
it's necessarily their dream
No,
if all
it's-
of the Italian and German stuff is a combined effort. But...
yes, it is because it's all of their problems in one place, which means all of the
No,
RN
it's
ships can be
also-
in one place.
It's also a case of you're trying to get battleships through contested straits where there is destroyers.
It's not like this has been
And
done
there is
before or
more.
anything.
Yeah, there was a difference in doing this during the Age of Steel and Iron.
No, I mean during World War II. Like, this is literally something
I mean,
Charles and now did.
But you have to realise there is a difference between running the Straits of Dover and running the Straits of Gibraltar.
The Straits of Dover are contested on both sides, and the Luftwaffe can provide constant air cover all the time. Gibraltar is not contested.
I don't.
Because remember,
I don't think these
there-
are
there
some of these
wasn't
swaps are not that amusing. I have to be
Right.
honest, Woods. But like swapping 1940s Royal Navy and French is kind of just silly. Like it's not.
It doesn't really result
Also,
in
that is
anything
one where they
interesting.
could, and they genuinely could just move the ships back across the channel. That's all it would take.
We know Jellicoe made the best decision he could have made at Jutland, but what if he made the wrong choice? How would Jutland play out if he didn't make that particular choice? Depends what choice he makes. It depends
I
what
think.
choice.
Are you referring to turning into the torpedoes, or
I think he. I assume he's deploying the fleet. If he listens to Sturdy and does half the fleet the historical deployment, and then Sturdy takes the other half and goes down the other flank, the High Seas fleet is dead. It's even better than it was originally. If he deploys the other way, then there's no engagement, and the High Seas, or there's a weirder engagement that doesn't really result in Beatty doesn't die, but the Germans still turn back, but they don't take as much damage doing it.
Actually, the German battlecruisers die.
Oh yeah, if Jellicoe turns the other
Because
way.
if the battlecruisers are Royal battlecruisers are retreating and the Grand Fleet's not there to counter it, the Germans are going to pursue because
Yeah.
they need those battlecruisers dead,
Yeah.
and that just leads them straight charging into the maw of a part of the Grand Fleet, and the Grand Fleet does shit better than German battlecruisers.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the questions on what exactly do you mean by the best decision exactly here?
Yeah, I'm assuming he means the deployment. That's why I'm answering the way I am, but I don't know.
Because some would argue the best decision was to turn away from the torpedoes instead of turning into torpedoes.
That's what he did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always see what you mean.
Yeah, because if he didn't turn away from the torpedoes, he would have been able to cut and go basically straight across the High Seas fleet and prevent them leaving.
Yep.
But it would have been at severe risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is
Yeah,
one
so-
you were suggesting.
yeah,
when first
yeah.
deployment angles.
But yeah,
Yeah.
those are basically the three options. And none of them go. Basically, it all results in one results in damage to the High Seas fleet, which being slightly less than what it was historically. One results in there are two alternatives. One results in less damage to the High Seas fleet. One results in the possible destruction of the High Seas fleet. Drakroom's Reaper asks, what if the IJN mysteriously receives 6 Yamatos with full ammunition, fuel, and crew? Well, here's the thing.
Japan cries. How do we fuel these?
No, they've got fuel, so they can keep them in reserve, and they can, as long as they don't run them too heavily, they can keep them topped off with fuel. Bear in mind, the oil embargo isn't in place at this point, and won't be for some
Yeah, but
time
I mean when
yet.
they actually get used in war.
Oh,
They probably won't get used in war, is what I'm suggesting. They
they
would be crying over fuel.
the IGN can actually fuel.
They have a reserve, yes,
as in the IGN can fuel
as
their
we discussed
fleet.
the other day.
And of course, they do seize the Dutch East Indies, and there's a reason why a large chunk of the heavy surface units are based in that area, in and around that area, for the majority of the war, because it's easier to supply them from the Dutch East Indies, and the supply routes are easier to protect than keeping them based in Japan. They're also closer to the front line. You're looking at... can I finish? Go on then.
Okay. I have to say, with the whole oil embargo thing, is there a chance that that these 6 Yamatos immediately get Japan embargoed.
No, unlikely. Because
Because the Americans are going to go, hey, fuck you, you've broken the treaties.
no, because
Really big time.
because the Japanese haven't broken the treaties. As in,
By
well,
having 6 Yamatos, they have.
no, they haven't. Think about it. The Japanese haven't broken the treaties. Whatever divine intervention gave them those battleships. has broken
But now the
treaties.
Japanese are keeping them. They have broke the treaty.
I would
Yeah,
point
but
out
do
that
you
it's not,
think
I
the
would point out
Americans
it's
are going
19,
to care?
it's 1937. They've already left the treaties. The US
Yeah, but the difference between
the US embargo was about a Japanese aggression in China, which is still escalating at this point. The addition of the addition of the battleships is going to make the US accelerate their building program. It is not going to jump them to sanctions. Bear in mind, what the US will think these ships are is 40 to 45,000 ton, 30-knot ships with 16-inch guns. They won't think they're the monsters they actually are. Now, those ships are dangerous, but they're ships the US can actually counter. You're not going to see the North Carolina. You're probably going to see the US build something equivalent to an earlier version of the Iowa, so a 28, 29-knot ship with 14-inch, like protected against 16-inch guns, with 9 16-inch guns, with just no regard given to the treaties at all. You're probably looking at them being built in batches of 4, so there'll be no pair of no-cals. There'll just be a 4 batch of no-cals and then a 4 batch of South Dakotas, possibly at a rating to 12 16s. Well, first off, of course, you've still got the 2 Yamatos building, so that's a fair point. The British response will probably be to build the Lions, which is unsurprising. And then, well, first things first, you've got the QE. Basically, the British are locked in. They have to build the KGVs because the design's in place and they have to build it. Like, otherwise, they're not going to get anything for another 2 to 3 years. But you might see more ships being built if the if the UK can find the steel to build them and the yard space to
Steel's
build.
not the issue.
And of course the armor plate as well, because that's the real problem is armor plate. So the Czech steel mills are going to have a field day. You're looking at that. The Lions will also get built and not cancelled. Yeah, you're looking at the treaties just breaking down. The treaties are just gone. There's no pretense of the UK and the US staying in the treaties. The only reason that the UK will build the KGVs is because they were closer to cutting steel and laying keels than the US were, and they can't afford to actually deal with that. Thing is, if Japan has 6 Yamatos with 2 more building, the US and UK will demand that the new Yamatos be scrapped. I find that highly unlikely, because that would mean going to war, and neither the UK or the US is ready for that, or has the stomach for it, over a bunch of new battleships. And also...
But it's also a case of, I don't agree with you that the US not knowing what they are once the 6 new battleships have appeared. Because it's one thing to get it wrong, when the Japanese are actively hiding it from you, but as soon as they're in the water, they're going to go, hey, these are bigger than we thought. When they get actual pictures of them, hey, these are bigger than we thought.
Possibly.
And
But it's important to remember that the US didn't actually know what the Yamatos were until after the Second World War, even though they had pictures and intel.
They refused to believe it due to racism.
No, Foxo,
I'm pretty sure they would have. I'm pretty sure they would have known that these are not 45,000 ton
Yeah.
ships.
But it's a large part
Well,
of
the exact
it's
specifications.
it's a lot more clear with with aircraft development, but with the Americans not believing the Japanese can manufacture a very good domestic
no, I
aircraft.
believe that, but there's no reason to believe that navally, because the Japanese have been building equivalent capital ships for some time. There's no reason to believe that...
But it was believed because of how much influence the British yards had in Japan. Even after Japan went to building their own ships domestically, Vickers had a lot of influence.
Yes,
And
they did, but
the very large belief in America that, oh hey, a lot of these are Vickers ships with the Japanese crescent stamped on them.
I don't think that's accurate. I feel like that's I've not seen any evidence of that anywhere. I know it happened with naval aircraft, but I don't think that it was to that extent with warships, but I might be. I'll have to agree to disagree with that one, but it could be. There's nothing stopping a combined US-UK fleet coming in. Yeah, there is. It's called 6 Yamatos plus the rest of the IJN fleet. That's a pretty big fucking deterrence to going to war. And also the fact that it's war, it would mean a full-scale war in the mid-30s. The UK's got more important things to deal with, like, you know, the rise of Nazi Germany. And the US is not ready to go in without the UK, so nothing will happen.
For context, the British proposed to Japan, when Japan was getting angsty, in 1939 of allowing the Japanese, giving the Japanese special rights in Malaya to Malayan oil, in return for them not doing anything, and bypassing the American embargo.
And Japan refused, I think.
Part of it was that. Part of it was Japan didn't believe the British would stand up to American pressure over it.
Yeah. The fleet from RIMPAC 2016 got sent back to 1912 and swore allegiance to Australia, who then becomes isolationist due to the event. What would they do? RIMPAC 2016.
Is it in harbour?
I have
like
no...
Australia cries, how are we meant to maintain these vessels?
So you're talking about a massive fleet. 40 ships and submarines, including supercarriers and amphibious assault ships and marine detachments, and
Also, who said that Australia is allowed to become isolationist?
yeah.
Either
I'd
as
also,
well.
I'd also,
Yeah.
I'd also point out you're talking about. So you,
Right.
So
Okay.
So
Sure,
you're
they have
telling
the fleet.
So you're telling me that every ship from Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Colombia, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Israel, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, Peru, Republic of Korea, Republic of the Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Tonga, UK, US, and Vietnam swears allegiance to Australia?
What time period is this? Because Australia might not.
1912.
exist yet.
1912.
Okay, so Australia's been signed into Dominion status because that's away. I think.
I said,
isn't it?
I do not see how they can refuse this. Like, because genuinely the UK will go, yeah, no, give. Your fleet's not going to be, you're not going to be able to withstand this fleet. Also, the populace will go, what do you mean you just cut off all international relations?
And also, there's
There
a
must-
lot, and also
There'll most
there's a
likely
lot
be the
of-
populace uprising about
yeah,
this.
there's
Excuse
also a
me?
lot of there's also still a lot of love for the mother country at this point in Australia.
Yeah.
And remember, once Australia becomes a Dominion, it's functionally independent anyway.
Yeah, so, and also they're dependent on British trade, and you know the
That
imperial
exists.
system.
But-
Like, yeah, you've also got the fact that the crew's loyalties apparently have been overrighted.
Funniest thing I can say about this is the Indonesian fleet with Dutch Indonesia. and
Yeah, this is the thing.
Like-
It's like,
and the Korean fleet.
Like,
Yeah.
There's literally no way Australia could become isolationist.
it's
And
It's-
then
it's a-
the UK goes, give.
yeah, it's a question. It's a question that sounds great to answer on paper, but the moment you start to dig into it remotely, it just falls to bits because there's
International
Australia's not
relations and
self-sufficient,
yeah.
and there's
Australia's
so
not
many
self-sufficient yet.
complications that it's really difficult to actually.
Like even just stick it, and even if you go for the stick on New Ireland somewhere, they probably just get left there then, because if it's out of the way, then no one will bother with it. More than likely, because they've got other issues cropping up at this point in time.
Question: thoughts on the A36? Do you think they're the best use of the Allison-engined Mustangs? To tell you the truth, I don't really have an opinion on the A36. I know it exists. I know it's a ground attack aircraft. But that's about it.
It was the
Good idea,
A36
poor
again.
execution.
Eh? Right. I just don't really see necessarily what advantages it really has.
Hmm.
Yes, where was
Because
Moe's question?
it's-
Moe did ask a question at some point
Yeah,
a while
it's-
ago.
The A36 sort of slots into an early Typhoon equivalent. It's a ground attacker that can defend itself by being a low-level fighter, but good idea, poor execution.
Hmm.
Also, I think it's got 8 to 10 50 cals, which is a lot of 50 cal.
Actually, it only has 6.
6, and then
Six.
was it gun pods it got?
Uh, 4 bombs up to £1,000 on 2 underwing hardpoints.
Okay, so the gun pods
like-
are just a water.
Yes.
Like, honestly, A36. This is A36A in particular. I'm not sure if there was other variants, but I just don't necessarily see a purpose in it, really.
Basically, just check YouTube quickly. 'cause
It's-
I
Honestly?
forget to do that.
It-
Uh,
Its job is that of the Typhoon. It's just a proto Typhoon.
Yeah, but isn't the Elson engine worse than the Typhoon's engine though?
it's-
Yeah, but it also comes in earlier.
yeah, this is the
Like,
thing.
fair.
It's a bit of a weird.
It's-
But actually, no,
it's
then again,
the-
does it? Actually,
But remember, the Typhoon doesn't get good until 43.
Uh,
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 yes, yeah, but this is only basically introduced in late 42. Like, so really, pretty much same time period of
It's
even
about-
when the Typhoon's getting good.
It's about 8-9 months before Typhoon gets good. Which is quite a long time in World War II aircraft development.
Potentially, but even then, Apparently, the literal only reason it existed was to try and keep North American aviation actually running, because otherwise they would probably got shut down.
Moe, apparently a Wood said you had a question.
Yes, they did a while ago. Where was it? More interesting one is what's it called? Where German and Italians share the IJN, whereas Japan gets the German fleet.
I think.
German and Italian
Oh,
sort of
we
things.
answered this one already. That was last week, I think. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I think.
I think we answered parts of it at least, but I
Oh
can't
no,
quite
we
remember.
answered.
It was Japan cries in a corner.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we answered that one last week. But we did. Like we said, what if I think it was the German in IJN got swapped between the big three? Well, if the German and Italian fleets go to Japan and Japan splits its fleet between Germany and Italy, well, the Japanese have collected a hodgepodge of different ships. Knowing Germany's penchant for stupid projects, they'd probably get the Yamatos being constructed. The Japanese have more fast battleships now than they had before, which is good for them. Bismarck
No
Tirpitz.
carriers though.
No, that's true. They'll probably be rushing to complete. They'll probably rush to complete light carriers. Bear in mind, it's only steel that's been cut. So, Taiho.
Which year is it again as well in particular?
So Taiho will still be completed. You're probably looking at them accelerating some of their other carrier programs as well.
Because another one I would be concerned about for Japan is what's it called? Actual dockyards where they can build stuff. They'll probably be trying to desperately get anything out of dockyards so they can build
Yeah,
new
I'd have to.
carriers.
Yeah, I'd have to see what Dr. Clark has to say on that. But basically, emergency 16-inch KGV conversion. Oh,
No.
that's horrific. I hate it.
Just no. KGV not have 16-inch guns for a reason. KGV too small.
15-inch? Maybe. 16-inch? No. Also, now
Unless
you've got
you
what?
give
A 2x.
KGV
Also,
renowned style setup.
oh no, it's not
KGV
even.
not have-
It's not even round. It's 2x3, 1 triple 4, 1 triple aft.
You should go die in hole.
Like, that's
Royal
even,
Navy no need panzer sheath.
not even Gascon. That's technically Champagne.
Will the Japanese have to rush Graf Zeppelin to have a single carrier? Probably.
They probably wouldn't want to rush Graf Zeppelin
They
necessarily.
don't have
though.
a choice. They need it. They need carrier hulls again, even shit ones. And then bear in mind,
Kraken?
I guess something
Yeah,
better
Kraken.
than
Do you
nothing.
know what I say about Champagne with that
Mhm.
design? That someone should have smashed a bottle of champagne over the designer's head.
Can't say I blame you.
Well, someone should have done that to the entire French High Command, but hey ho, let's go.
Oh, good God! I don't know why I'm so tired today. I'm really not with it.
Convert the Deutschlands into carriers.
It's in
that
theory-
would take time and dockyards.
No, it wouldn't take dockyards.
If-
well,
You probably would try and get it properly done.
what I would say is that I'd point out that the Deutschlands are fairly slow, but they are also
Long range, but slow.
But they are also 28 knots. It's 28 knots is actually fits with a lot of Japan's other light carriers.
Oh, you've summoned a Clark fleet.
Oh bloody hell! He shows up out of the woodwork. God damn it! Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Clark once again.
He's not actually hitting the VC, but he's up now. He has.
Dr. Clark once again showing up out of the woodwork.
Hello.
As usual, just this is a thing now. Apparently, I haven't summoned Dr. Clark.
Okay,
I haven't asked him
Rand.
to be here. He just
Well, no.
shows up.
Well,
Is
you
this a
summoned him
regular
by
thing?
mentioning
You
that
did.
enough time.
You've been mentioning my name.
Yeah.
You've
Say the name
been
3 times
mentioning
until
my
the bottom line
name.
brew.
Right. Well. Now we can hit this question properly. Then I guess. So the question basically is in so same thing as before. Mid 1940, Germany and Italy fleets go to Japan. Japanese fleet gets chopped down the middle and split between Germany and Italy. So the first thing we have to find out is what goes where from Japan to Germany and Italy. And of course, same thing applies, so steel cut. The only things that go over are ships that have had steel cut on their keels. Anything else doesn't. And they have what they need to complete the ships. So I think the first thing we need to decide is what ships from the IGN go to what. I think I'm going to be
I can do this, but there's already also not only did someone say my name, someone apparently said something about the King George V's not being able to take a 16-inch gun.
Oh no,
That was
Fox.
Fox, I believe.
Now, I am not sure where they get the idea of this one, but the actual
I'm running
scenario
away.
is that
I'm running away.
No, hey.
It's what you're dealing with. You can fit
You can fit
16-inch
anything,
guns
not a
on the King George
single-
V.
Oh.
And you can make
Would
it
it
work.
be
The problem with them, and the problem they found was that to try and by the time they started converting them to 15s or 16s, they'd already got past the point of building the supports underneath the B turret, which was only going to be a twin mount. And there's no point going to two triples and a twin mount because you're just going to look pathetic. So they decided to carry on. Because, believe it or not, in capital ships, there is a certain level of ego which goes into their design above other things. Now, you could have done the renowned configuration, but that would have been considered also pathetic as well for their size. Especially when you consider their speed was only 28 knots. So, that is the criteria. However, if someone had been prepared to crank open the budget and spend some money, they could have bored down and widened the space under that B turret and would have made it large enough for a triple turret. that would have had it. Because let's be honest, the quadruple turret, the barbettes and rings to support them can easily take a triple 15 or a triple 16 for the quads. It's a twin. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And you just have to build that up. Now, moving on to that one. Who the frigate hates Japan enough to give them Italy and Germany's navy?
It's Moe Waifu.
I mean, it's bad enough trying to do the war with the Japanese navy in the Japanese situation, without doing it with the German and Italian navies. The Italian navies are great ships, but they're designed for the Mediterranean and have no legs. The German ships are lovely, but they are absolute maintenance hogs. To the extent that I can imagine a Japanese chief engineer would be single-handedly writing down a list of every German scientist and engineer ever involved in the design and construction of those engines to kill them! Personally! In the most vicious and painful way possible! As it was the Americans, when testing their ships post-World War II, wanted to do nasty and horrific things to their designers and their engineers. So
I think before we move on to how Japan deals with the shit show it's been handed, the first thing we need to do is decide how we're chopping the Japanese fleet in half, and who gets what. The big ticket items, of course, is who's getting the carriers, who's getting the Yamatos, who's getting the Congos, and most importantly, who's getting the rights to build what.
I think Germany gets the Yamatos. I think Congos and Nagatos go to Italy.
That's going to scare them to toffee.
And I would say, carrier-wise, well, let's be honest, the Germans don't deserve any decent carriers because of what they do to the engines that are making the poor Japanese suffer. So that means the Germans get Kaga and Ryujo.
Ooh.
And Hosho. They can have Hosho as well.
That's 3 more flight decks than 0.
Is it evil enough yet?
It's 3 more flight decks than 0, so that's something.
You have to give them as large capacity flight decks as possible. That way you get even more Nazi infighting over who has command of the airways.
Well, here's the here's the funny thing. The
Germans also get all the seaplane carriers that Japan has.
Which
the Italians only get Hiryu, Soryu, and Akagi.
They get the good ones.
Yes.
And that means that, and if the Germans are getting the Yamatos on their slips, then that means that we're giving the Shikakus on their slips to the Italians.
Yes.
And let me, if you allow me to make a funny joke that will segue into something even more hilarious. The Germans get the oldest Japanese light cruisers from Kuma backwards, because now they actually have cruisers that could go into the sea without ripping their bows off. Congratulations, Germany! You actually have cruisers that can function and are actually
Speaking
better.
of which, Japan's crying at that.
Although actually,
Japanese
yes.
cruisers, could like the Megamis and like the really underbuilt ones have survived operations in the North Atlantic?
Let me
put it this way. I have this discussion regular with people who go, oh no, this ship says it's only built for the Atlantic. And I go, no. The Royal Navy, if they're building something for the Atlantic, it means it can be operated in every ocean around the world, because the Atlantic is probably the most vicious and most likely. All the oceans have a tendency to try and kill you, but the Atlantic has turned it from a tendency to the general desire of the Arctic and Antarctic, to the absolute passion of the North Sea. The Atlantic has turned it into an absolute art form. It is their raison d'etre. Its entire belief is to try and kill anyone who's sailing on it. So
you're looking at.
Yeah, if you build it for the Atlantic, it's fine. If you build it for the Pacific and you operate in the Atlantic, you'd better hope it's summer.
And
it's a genteel summer.
Yeah. What I will say is that the people who are going to get the most out of this is the Italians, because the Mediterranean is like the Pacific in many ways, in that if it's calm, it's calm. If it's stormy, if the Mediterranean and the Pacific are stormy, you're probably going to die. But if they're calm, they're calm.
Let's be honest, the Mediterranean is rarely miffed. You can avoid it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can see it coming. Whereas, as I put it, the Atlantic is always stormy, and occasionally, in the middle of that storminess, which is its natural tendency, it's Lucifer.
Yeah.
And Lucifer, who stubbed his toe and then stood on Lego.
Ugh. The
That kind of mood.
The Atlantic
You know,
is a woman's spawn.
you stab your toe, you're hopping around on one foot going ow, 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 and then you land on Lego.
Ooh.
That kind of mood.
Ow. So I think the more modern lights go to Italy, and I think we give the more lightly built heavies to the Italians, especially some of the.
I think you're being kind.
I am.
I think all the seaplane carriers, remember, all the seaplane carriers, including reconnaissance cruisers, have to go to the Germans, to be fair.
Yeah. Are we really going to give the Germans the Tones?
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether that's cruel or being generous. It can be
You
both.
try operating them in the North Sea.
Yeah, I suppose.
And also,
Hey,
let's be honest,
Baltic.
the Baltic and the North Sea.
God, you're right.
Think how
I
cold
think
they're gonna get.
Oh yeah.
As I understand it, the Baltic is essentially the little sister of the Atlantic.
And also crew
Like,
quality,
in there.
crew quarters.
Yeah.
Yes, fun times.
Yeah.
God.
It may be the first time the Royal Navy recovers a German ship completely empty of crew, because they've all frozen to the ship. The Royal Navy just sent a boarding party ashore going, what on board the ship? What's going on here? They're literally frozen to the steel of the hull!
Oh dear.
Oh god, you'd get so many horror games out of that
Oh yeah.
in this universe.
Yeah.
Completely. So the
The
crazy.
lone SS/Gestapo officer would still be alive, laughing manically somewhere,
Yeah.
while all the crew has frozen to it. Yeah.
So the Italians are doing well out of this. The Germans are sat there going, "We can't use this. At least not without major refits."
Yeah.
And it's 1940, so they haven't got time for major refits.
The
Nope.
Japanese crews would be happy though.
Oh yeah, the Japanese. Well, thing is, in terms of cruisers,
Well, they just lost all their long lance torpedoes.
That is true, but in terms of modern light cruisers,
Their
the
entire doctrine has just been destroyed.
That's very true. So basically, this works for basically nobody. It's not like the Italian, or it's not like the other situations where people can make it work. This works for nobody. Basically, the Japanese are buggered, the Germans are buggered, the Italians are buggered. The UK, France, and the Americans just have linked out arms and are currently dancing around a maypole going, "We're gonna fucking win the naval war, yep."
The Royal Navy's gonna have a hernia though.
No. The Italians have carriers in the. Basically, the Italians are going to be okay out of this because they've got long lance, and they've got carriers, and they're in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So the only one who's happy is the Italians out of the Axis, and the only one who's unhappy is the Royal Navy, who's got to deal with the Italians in the Mediterranean.
God damn it. Hey, Dr. Clark, it's zeros over the med again!
It is. Hey, let's be honest. That was a fun video to talk through.
Oh, God, that was great. Well, alright, so I think that pretty much sums that one up. Beiyang, Moe wife asked, the Beiyang fleet, and what's the realistic force it can fight off if it isn't screwed over by typical Qing corruption? Well, the Beiyang fleet is superior to all of the colonial squadrons in theatre at the height of its power prior to its entry into the First Sino-Japanese War in the modern era. If
On
it's-
paper.
on paper, as we know, it wasn't. But if it's fully equipped, trained, not suffering supply issues, then that is no longer on paper. That is a fact. You're going to have to bring... You can't bring the second-class battleships to deal with the Force. You have to bring something that has 12-inch guns to deal with those pair of Chinese capital ships. Yeah, you basically have to bring full-on capital ships from Europe to deal with them. Like, you can bring your other cruisers and armored cruisers and everything else to deal with the rest of the Beiyang fleet's assets, but if you want to deal with the two battleships, you've basically got to commit a full battleship. The colonial battleships and armored cruisers of the other squadrons won't work. And the Japanese are buggered. If they attempt the Battle of the Yellow River in this timeline, the Beiyang fleet's gonna laugh hysterically as it annihilates.
Where are they
the
getting these
IJM.
battleships from?
The pair of Chinese battleships the Beiyang fleet possess.
Weren't they the turreted ironclads?
They're this weird quasi. They're on the borderline between turreted ironclads and steel battleships. They look old-fashioned, but they're built in a very modern style. It's in their all-steel construction. They've got modernish guns. They look old-fashioned, but they're not old-fashioned in the way they're constructed, if that makes sense. They're not... They're this weird halfway house between an ironclad and an all-steel battleship. They're in a similar boathouse to things like USS Maine and USS Texas. Like, they look old-fashioned, but they're on the verge of being modern all-steel battleships. If that makes sense. They're not quite pre-dreadnoughts, but they're not ironclads either.
Fleet?
Yes.
I'm just checking. You are... I'm gonna ask again. You're talking about the Dingyuan class, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
You are sure you're talking about Dingyuan class?
I think I am.
Because
I'm
we've already had this experience before with a certain Spanish battleship, so, you know, are you sure you're talking about the Dingwang class? Because
The ironclad
this
from
could get...
1881.
Yes!
I could be convinced.
The ironclad turret ships.
I could be partially convinced to change my metrics slightly, little bit.
Okay, I'm just going to put an
maybe.
image just for anyone
Tiny
else.
bit.
I've just had to look this up myself. In Theatre, these are the ships that I think he's referring to.
Yeah,
Yes,
those
those
the
are.
ones.
That's the Dingwan class. That's the Dingwan class. Yes. The ones who managed to have the only version of the Krupp 12-inch guns which were ever annoying. The ones which had that very interesting Hotchkiss revolver cannons that they actually happen to have on the specific type of mount which the Royal Navy found could try and disintegrate itself. We'll leave that to one side.
25 caliber.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't. Well, 25 caliber guns weren't unusual for the 1880s. That's not a thing to be held against them.
Yeah, it's a...
So
I mean,
you're saying
Dr. Clark, you
Feeling
could at least
united.
agree with that point. 25 caliber guns weren't unusual for battleships of the 1880s.
no, not unusual.
I mean, I'm
It's
aware
not
that
unusual.
I'm aware that certain navies were stretching
they're
their
not that
legs into
effective.
longer. Well, it's basically down to range and. Well, I'm not sure why you don't really see the increase in the length of the guns until later on down the line.
Okay. So this is the interesting thing when we start having these conversations. I start thinking and going through now. What are the battleships he's talking about from the Royal Navy, which are out there at that time? What are the battleships which are out there? And quite right, there are quite a few which, frankly, honestly, I would not. I would not, want to go and fight those ships with. Perhaps He says, looking at the Colossus class, and their, let's see, 18 inches of Citadel armor, turrets with 16-inch faces, 4 12-inch guns. Of course, it's the Mark 1, so, you know, that's a fine gun. It's just as interesting as the Krupp one was actually at the time. But the trouble is, with all these guns, what you really should be looking at is the range of fire of the secondaries, because that's... Most of the ships in this range, in this era, are not going to do long-range fire. Their 12-inch guns are for, basically for show and status as battleships. And this is where I have the problem with the Ding-1. Because, or Ting-Yuen, or etc., as you pronounce them, because how many of the 5.9-inch guns do they carry?
Just 2, sadly.
1 fore, 1 aft, isn't it?
Yeah, in rotating turrets.
How many 6-inch guns do the Colossus class carry?
I know.
Give me a moment. I literally just had this actually loaded up in front of me. 5 6-inch and 20 smaller guns.
Yeah. What about the Ajax class? Anyone know?
Ajax 6, a 2 6-inch. Doesn't mention other smaller guns, unfortunately.
So they're about equivalent to what sort of the Ajax, really.
Yeah.
But anything after the Ajax is fairly capable of doing probably damage. And again, just a small question: Admiral class. Anyone remember how many of 6-inch guns they carry? The ones that
which
come
one are we?
after-
Which one are we referring to?
Oh, he's talking about...
Well,
he's-
you
he's
can
talking
refer to
about
any of them.
Well,
he's
right,
talk-
because Collingwood had 6 6-inch, 12 6-pounders, 8 3-pounders. Benbow
Mhm.
had 10 6-inch and 12 6-pounders and 7 3-pounders. Others had 6 6-inch, 12 6-pounders, 10 3-pounders.
Remember correctly, Benbow also had a 16.25-inch guns,
Yes.
which are the largest guns which have ever been fitted to an active Royal Navy battleship.
413 millimeters, yeah.
Yeah, and the Collingwood had 12-inch guns, but the rest of the ships had 13.5-inch guns. And
Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so...
I think
Well, I
things
think that-
might not go too well for these what's it called, Chinese ones, I'll be honest.
Okay, so...
look, the thing is, and the point I'm trying to make to fleet here is that most of the second-class battleships they're going to fight in this timeline are the old first-rate battleships which have been sent out.
which is a problem, because they're...
So most of their contemporary battleships that the British and the others are building are actually a lot more powerful and a lot stronger, because what are the Chinese limited by? The local infrastructure they have to support the ships once they get them.
Yeah.
They can buy whatever they like from abroad, but they cannot. They have to be able to be supported by local infrastructure.
And though they make a very good effort to build the infrastructure, Dingyuan and Shenyuan at about 7,500 tons are about the biggest they can support with the dockyard infrastructure they've constructed.
Yes, and the Admiral class are roughly 11,000 tons. The Colossus class are not that colossal 9,500 tons. The Ajax class are 8,500 tons.
I mean, there's something else I would like to talk about. The 8 cruisers the Beiyang fleet buys, which are fairly...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not bad ships, actually. All told. They're all basically Ellswick, Armstrong-style protected cruisers. Looking at 8.3-inch... Well, the first of them have old, slow-firing 10-inch guns, which are a bit...
Let's be honest, 2 of them are literally Armstrong Whitworth Ellswick cruisers.
Yeah.
2 are constructed by Lairds in Birkenhead, Camel Lairds. Let's say will become.
Yeah.
Vulcan and Stettin are again a favourite, the German ones, and the Ping 1 is the one they produce locally in the Fuchao Navy Yard.
And the fact, and do you know what? For all Ping 1's flaws, the fact they even managed to build this thing is impressive enough, considering, you know, where they were like 10 years
In
before.
China.
Yeah. I mean, they slapped a 10-inch gun on the bloody thing. But
We're looking at the same ship.
yeah, Ping,
Fleet.
yeah, Ping Yuan.
You know you know you've got some lovely rose-coloured glasses when it comes to ironclads. I know you like to wear them when we're having these discussions, but I really think you should take them off and put the plain clear glasses on, because I think you need the help.
I mean, she's not the best protected cruiser in the world. In fact, she's not even close to the top of that list.
What even is that? That looks more like
It's a
someone slapped a
glorified
gun.
river gunboat.
I was going to say, it looks like someone slapped a gun to a tug.
I mean, it is.
Don't all tugboats like that, Dragon. They do very important work.
I know, but
Yeah,
To be fair, she was basically a Chinese first attempt, and she was not. Calling her a cruiser is perhaps disingenuous. She's basically she's the largest of their gunboats, if you want to be generous.
I will accept large gunboat.
so
Although it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if the Chinese Navy hadn't gotten, well, aggressively destroyed in extreme prejudice.
We're
and
talking
then-
about the Battle of Yellow River.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
So in the defense there of Ping 1, she's actually the ship which manages to damage the Matsushima, the Japanese flagship. Although I think that's mostly because they were all looking at her, couldn't figure out what she was, and so weren't firing at her until she started firing at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any truth to the rumors that, you know, the Japanese couldn't penetrate the armor of those ironclads with anything they possessed. Because I'm sure that the Matsushimas could have penetrated them, you know, if they could have hit them.
8 inches of armor is not going to protect that ship that much.
Yeah. I feel like the real strength of the Beiyang fleet in this hypothetical scenario, where you've got...
Although let's be honest, the Japanese were armed with Kanek guns.
Oh god.
Kanek guns?
The same ones
Kanek.
The same ones
Connect.
that I larped on so aggressively about last week that were fitted to Pelayo. In the same mounts as well. In fact,
It's a single 12.6-inch Kanek gun.
In fact, they are exactly the same guns and exactly the same mounts that Pelayo carries fore and aft.
Mm-hmm. And they only carry them forward.
so those are the. So is that meant to be the cruisers the Chinese Navy got? Just quickly going into that.
Oh no, that's only one of them. They
Or is
got
right.
they got 3 classes. They got two in 1881 from Laird at Birkenhead, which were small 1,300-ton vessels capable of about 15 knots with 2 10-inch guns, 4 4.7-inch quick-firing guns, and 2 15-inch guns. The 10-inch guns are
15-inch
older.
torpedoes.
Sorry,
15-inch torpedoes.
I was going to say a 15-inch gun on a cruiser. Well,
Sorry,
give them
15-inch
something at
torpedoes.
least.
Then you have the 3 they ordered from three they ordered from Vulcan, which was there was one ship, and then there was one ship, and then there was 2. The first ship from Vulcan was 2,400 tons, which is already a massive leap in size. 15 knots again, and then you see 2 8-inch guns, which I'm not sure are quick firing, but I could be wrong. One 5.9-inch gun that probably is quick firing, and again 4 15-inch torpedo tubes.
'Cause, yeah,
Then
I'm just
you-
trying to compare them to the British cruisers of the time.
Then you've they're about it's that similar. This is the early age of the protected cruiser we're talking about here, and even then they are still on the smaller end of what
Well,
we're talking
I would
about.
just take a look, say, the Orlando class cruiser for the British, which was also in service at this period, which is 17 to 18 knots, 2 9.2-inch guns, and 10 6-inch secondaries plus extra.
Well, yes, but she's a first-class protected cruiser. These are second-class protected.
Even if we go to third class light cruisers, you're still getting 8 4.7-inch guns, and you're going 19 knots
Yeah, this
of
is
the period.
This is true, but then again, we haven't gotten to the best of the Chinese cruisers yet.
Okay.
So we've got the Xingyuan and the Lao.
I'm interested to see what he's going to declare as the best.
The Xingyuan and the Laiyuan, with 2,900 tons, 16 knots, 2 8.3-inch guns, 2 5.9-inch guns, and 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. And then we come to the best of the Chinese cruisers, which are the Xinyuan and the Qingyuan, built by Armstrong Whitworth Elswick, which are 2,353 tons, capable of 18 knots, carry 3 8.2-inch guns, which are definitely quick-firing, in one twin and one single, and 2 5.9-inch guns and 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. And because of their speed, their firepower, and basically they are the best of the Chinese cruisers. Basically because they're fast, they're more heavily armed than any of their contemporaries. It's not even a contest.
These seem to be on par with the Imperice class, which are half sail ship, half steam ship, in terms of weapon sort of layout of rough tonnage and layouts.
Well,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with cruisers carrying sail in this period. A lot of cruisers still did.
Yep. It's just, I'm not exactly placing much faith in this Chinese cruiser squadron.
Well, here's the thing. You've got
I think going back to
Dragon! It's not a case of faith. It's a case of blind belief at this point.
Hey, just a minute. Just a minute. Like, these aren't. They're not the best examples of cruisers in the world, but they're still capable of. If they're operating as a
Look,
squadron.
I was asked the question on Brew Ships yesterday as to whether or not what would happen if the Royal Navy Channel Squadron had after the Dogger Bank incident, they'd been coming up to close them, and the Kamchatka had actually fired on some Royal Navy torpedo boat destroyers in their floating point. And the simple answer was complete and utter destruction of the Russian 2nd Pacific Squadron in detail. The thing is, that's with Duncan-class battleships. The Royal Navy would not need something Duncan level for this kind of contest. I think that the main problem for the Chinese here.
So the Chinese can't deal with the RN. Well, that's obvious. No one can deal with the RN.
No, I don't think they could deal with the USN in this period.
That's probably fair.
Potentially the German or the Spanish Navy, maybe even in this period. And we know what happened to the Spanish Navy not long after this period.
I thought you said the Spanish corruption had already set in by this point, and we're going off a Beiyang fleet.
It has.
That isn't corrupt. So
yeah,
but that.
Yes,
not...
but I think that makes it worse for you, fleet.
No. Why do people? Fleet.
Just because the Spanish actually can put together a contiguous formation, broadly speaking.
Unfortunately, China has never been a great naval player, even for their own coastal waters. Potentially.
They have periods.
Yeah, they have.
They have periods. They have periods. Well, it's kind of like, let's put it this way. You're dealing with a country which is the size, broadly speaking, of America. I.e., you want differences, you can travel internally without going externally. You want to find most things, you can find them somewhere. China. And so it is automatically sort of like an empire from its internal bounds. But the trouble is, unlike America, which really is bordered by 2 oceans, and then to its north has a great northern expanse called Canada, which is never really much of a threat unless it's part of the British Empire, or to the south, Mexico, which is, if you consider, for quite a lot of their border, whilst it is crossable by individuals seeking asylum, perhaps, depending on the circumstances and the scenario, is not exactly something which an army wants to try and advance over that territory, because it's kind of open with some deep gorges which are going to seriously narrow your avenues of maneuvers. Whereas for the Chinese, they have huge frigating land borders they have to secure. So it's kind of like Germany. They might want a navy, they might want to build up a navy, but it's always going to have to take a firm second place to their army. And navies cannot really thrive in that situation. because armies always look more impressive. Armies are always better at staff work because the Navy spent most of their lives off at sea. If we look at the run up to World War One, and I'm doing a common response video I'm recording this evening to do with some of the videos on my channel. There were lots of comments about Battenberg in terms of, you know, why couldn't he change the government's position? And the point I'd sort of make is that when they first sign the Entente Cordiale in 1904, you have Wilson as First Sea Lord, then you have Fisher as First Sea Lord, and they are great First Sea Lords. But unlike their army counterparts, they don't set up a staff, they don't start out pumping out papers to the House of Commons every month about their defence strategies, etc. They rely on the tradition of the Navy and the tradition of, you know, the naval officers' tradition of the admirals do not share their plans with the politicians. They merely tell them of it and expect them to listen to it, because that had worked for the previous 200 years. The trouble was the army with the staff are pumping out information. It's kind of like information warfare. They're shaping the discourse and discussion by constantly feeding in the information into the discussion. And if you consider the parliamentarians, they've got a admiral who goes, "Oh no, my plans, trust me." Or they've got a confidential briefing document given to them by the army. Yes, it might not be more than a highly elaborate train timetable, but it makes me feel in on it. And so, when you get the decade later, and whilst actually Louis has set up a staff while he was Second Sea Lord and First Sea Lord continued it on and has run a staff and has been trying to do this for about the last 3 years, he's trying to fight back after 10 years, actually 15 years of the British Army doing this production, and he's just sort of trying to fight back now. So the Army's had 15 years of shaping the discourse and conversation. He can't win that. There is no way you can win that, because the entire terms of reference to the debate by that point are entirely Army terms of reference to the debate. And it's the same when you're talking about this in terms of China. The Chinese Navy could be as useful as anything, but their first reference to the debate is always going to be, look at all our land borders we have to secure. So they're not sea blind, they are sea something. But of our borders, the most important one, the most risky one, are the land ones.
Yep.
Yeah, the steppe.
Which is why they're historically always weak on the seaside.
Yeah.
And they only build up navies when they feel completely secure in their land power.
Or when piracy gets too bad. Like with, I think, is it the
No, as a rule,
Japanese pirates?
as a rule, what they did is they hired some of the pirates to fight the other pirates in those circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fleet.
Yeah, the whole is it the junk fleets?
Yeah.
At least for counter piracy.
Sad fleet.
Yeah.
Also,
They basically hired various pirate clans to be counter pirates. Kind of like what my family history is full of.
just note-
Occasionally getting hired to go and hunt down ourselves.
Hello everyone.
We always brought someone in for it.
Hello everyone who's arrived, Paul and the others from the YouTube side of things. Nice to see you again. Where were we? Bayong Fleet, something. About the banana with the Ferrari and the thingamabob with the MacGuffin. Where was it?
The foo is starting to catch on. I'm liking this.
I am. I feel like if I am catching on, my brain knows something my mind doesn't, despite them being the same thing.
Don't
Oh,
worry.
you are Defoe.
I think it's the name Defoe. It's starting to get circulation.
I think so. I am just. I swear to God, if I become Defoe, like I'm just gonna, it's gonna be like it's over.
Somebody actually asked me why me and Defoe keep ganging up on Fleet the other day, and I went, "That's not what's happening."
No. I am Defoe.
Ah, yes! Fleet. The Fleet Diffuse Civil War.
It'll never end. It'll never end. You typical
They're
guy.
fighting between the French and the Spanish navies. Pelayo versus Hoche.
Hoche
Who
will win that
wins?
fight, probably. Anyway, your typical gunnery officer asks, question for Dr. Clark. Do you think the Oliver Hazard Perry class in the mid-1980s had better ASW, AAW, and ASUW capabilities than the Type 42 destroyer? Do you think the OHP would have survived the ordeal the Type 42's experience in the Falklands and could fend off missile and air attacks much better? He needs Dr. Clark's opinion on this. He needs it, apparently.
Okay, well, on the terms of anti-submarine warfare, the OHPs are far better at that. So that's going to win because the Type 42s are literally area air defense destroyers. That's what they are. In terms of air defense, it depends which batch you're dealing with of Type 42s down there. The batch 1s, they are possibly on a par with, although technically the missiles that the Sea Dart was carrying are better range perspective, and they are a good missile. Batch 2s are definitely better, and batch 3s, which weren't of course down there and come later, they are the best, best of all the lot. I think the OHPs, you have to remember, they are a very good anti-submarine warfare system, but they are designed to work within the umbrella of the American system. So they are designed to work with airborne early warning aircraft. They're designed to work with the Burke equivalents at the time and Burks when they come in. They're designed to be part of that overall force structure. And they're very good at that when they're used in that perspective. It's when people tried to use them differently, that's when they had problems. So I think they are going to be very capable. But, saying that, that's not the structure you have down there. You have the Royal Navy going down there, and again, the force the Royal Navy's going down there with, in many ways, is what it has available, and potentially more importantly, what it thinks is going to work down there. And that's often a big decision point for the Royal Navy. What does it think is going to work down there? They have some really interesting issues setting up the fleet for the Falklands War and getting ships down there. One of the big problems the Royal Navy runs into is that the government have been quietly clipping away at a lot of capabilities of the sites. Slowly, so it's called salami slicing, and actually has a term in the British government. It actually has a term in Ministry of Defence practice of salami slicing, and they've been doing this now so well for so long that the Royal Navy found that a lot of its capabilities, which it theoretically had, were actually mirage capabilities. They didn't really exist. The classic one is naval gunfire support, right? So they had a unit within the British Army which was supposed to coordinate naval gunfire support. That unit consisted of one lieutenant colonel. He wasn't ordered to go. He turned up on HMS Fearless, and he introduced himself to Michael Clapp and Julian Thompson and asked if they wouldn't mind taking him along. And they were very happy to have him.
My God.
But he was never ordered by the British Army to go.
God.
And he was the sole remaining member of his unit. And without him, there was no one trained to coordinate naval gunfire support from a land perspective. And he spent the entire trip down training all the forward observers, all the people who was the observer team, how to do it. But according to the British table of units, there was that unit entirely existing. And then when you look at the destroyers, etc., one of the problems was, well, you can get a satellite system which can work while the radar's active. and the other communication system are active. Or you can go for a cheaper system and quickly you can turn it on, turn it off. Which you think was installed on the 42s. So you're dealing with a lot of issues. And the classic example, again, is in terms of the wartime and war experiences. We had Steve George on bilge pumps to talk about his experience in the Falklands War. We've also had Michael Clapper and Julian Thompson on bilge pumps. That's with me, Drac, and Jamie Seedall of Armour Carriers. And we had this discussion with him, and he describes how he was working on a Sea King on the forward deck of Invincible. And he didn't notice, but inside, the captain said fire 1, fire 2 on the missiles. Okay? He ducked, he heard the warning, ducked on the ship, then paused. Because in exercises, you only ever fire 2 missiles. And then he goes, fire 4, fire 5, fire 6, fire 7. And so Steve George, in that time, in the gap time, had actually got up, started working, and then has to dive again when more missiles start underneath the helicopter again, when more missiles start coming and firing forward. Now you think about that, that's a product of training and experience. No one's done an actual proper war scenario where they've gone, hang on, no, you're going to have to fire more than 1, 2 missiles. You're going to have to keep firing missiles until the target's down. So there are all sorts of issues in the Falklands War. Still, the Royal Navy does an incredibly good job down there. But it becomes... Everyone looks at the top capabilities like frigate numbers and destroyer numbers. And yes, you need to look at surface escort numbers and the ship numbers and the overall fleet size. But you also need to look at training, and you need to look at what's below some of the unit headings. And today, that petrifies me still, because salami slicing still goes on.
God damn it, that's terrifying.
So, something you think, oh, this is a unit. This has got a title, it's got a regimental, it's got a website page. There are units I can point to now, and I'm not going to say their names out loud because it would cause trouble, and there'd be huge things on all the stuff on how I know it. And people going, how do you know this? And just because I work with people and hear things, basically, is the answer. And there are units I could point to now. And this is not just the British military, because the Americans have got into the same thing, so have the French, so have the Germans. They've all got the lovely same ideas. Different phraseology goes around, but similar things. Where I can tell you that unit, which theoretically should have, let's say, 800 people, probably has about 160.
God damn it.
And the people you're always short of tend to be the practitioners.
Jesus.
Oh, and you want real more fun about that Army Lieutenant Colonel?
Mm-hmm.
He was slated to retire. And there was no one to replace him.
Good God. Christ. It never ends.
It just gets, yeah. So OHPs, they would have been useful down there. Would they have taken over from? They wouldn't have taken over the air warfare role, but they would certainly be useful in the anti-submarine warfare role. But there again, in the ASW role, probably the Type 22 is slightly better because that's a dedicated anti-submarine warfare frigate.
I mean, they would have been.
And it's the OHP. You always have to remember are designed to provide the numbers for a carrier battle group and for a convoy escort. Whereas the Type 22s were designed with the idea of being an independent operations anti-submarine warfare unit because the Royal Navy needed pickets of ASWs because they were supposed to take and reinforcements into Norway.
Yeah.
And so they needed both an ASW picket system and an AAW picket system, which is one of the reasons why they had the whole Type 42-22 combo. And there's also people go, we thought of this during the war. It was an ad hoc improvisation. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It had been worked out and thought about beforehand as a picket formation. The trouble is, again, how many times have people practiced it? And how many captains understood it? And that's where you get many of the issues, including a Type 42 running in front of a Type 22, which was trying to engage a target. and blocking their Seawolf missiles,
It never rains. But
and then getting hit. Yeah, but the thing is, the lessons of the Falklands War, broadly speaking, are you need to resource things, but you need to also train them. And you also need to be clear messaging.
yeah.
And the trouble is, the British government, the Foreign Office was giving one message, the British government was giving another message, and the armed forces were trying to give a third message, but they were being cut, so they couldn't even be there to deliver their message.
Yeah. There is one thing that the Oliver Hazard Perry could have contributed, specifically in San Carlos water. It's got the 3-inch and the Sea-Whiz. If those Skyhawks are coming down nice and low and doing their low-flying passes, they're gonna get clobbered.
That would massacre them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's honestly the thing that this is a really good thing. If you talk with Michael Clapp, who of course was the first commander of the Buccaneer S2 squadrons for the Rondo, first squadron commander for a Buccaneer S2 squadron, and he's an observer. And he basically plotted out the entire San Carlos Bay from the point of view of if he was flying the attack runs. And so he did a really good job of prepping. But as he would tell you quite happily, what he would have given for some 3-inch or anything in terms of heavy AA guns to have in that area, or 40mm Bofors, pom-poms. He would have loved some octuple pom-poms.
The 4.5s couldn't really do it, could they?
Because, again, they hadn't had the training in using them for air defense scenario.
So they were in theory capable, but couldn't actually track and engage.
Well, they're supposed to be using a radar. It's got to be manual. In that range, it was going to be manual track and engage. So they'd all done it as a radar thing because in the North Sea, North Atlantic, radar's going to work.
Yeah, whereas...
Inshore...
Yeah. Like, I mean, you put
If he could have had some octuple pom-pom mounts,
yeah,
he would have been happy as anything because
yeah.
those would have shredded the Skyhawks coming in.
Seeing as Seadonis
It literally popped over and just got into...
Yeah, seeing as Seadonis is here, I can actually reveal a slight spoiler for, seeing as we're talking about San Carlos water, for a certain video that's coming up in future. So, while there are... The RN that goes down in a certain timeline is much bigger. There are actually 2 large surface assets with the RN in the Falklands. Well, 2 very large surface assets. One is out doing funny things on the high seas, one's sat in San Carlos water. And it was actually Seadonis who came up with the concept. Because he suggested to me that if you're keeping Vanguard as an active service combatant, and you're going to be refitting her as it goes through the years, the RN's going to want something else to either A, act as a backstop, and B, act as sort of a test bed for systems you'll want to try and fit to Vanguard. So how are these going to deal with shock of the guns firing? How are these systems going to deal with being mounted to this warship? So,
yeah,
Seadonis came up with the concept of keeping Howe as a second-line service combatant and basically test bed for stuff to be fitted to Vanguard. And
that makes sense.
She is sitting in San Carlos water.
Which means Michael Clapp has a flagship which is actually able to support him doing his job?
Oh yeah, she's lost her rear 14-inch mount. She's lost that. She's still got her 2 forward mounts. I'm actually trying to find the image in question. I know it's somewhere. But she's just sat there absolutely having a whale of a time. The Skyhawks come in and she's just absolutely sat there going bang, 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 bang.
How much 40mm can I put in the sky at one time?
Oh no, it's not just 40mm. She's also sat there with 3-inch, and I think she's got some other fancy toys as well. Have you got? I can't find it, Seadonis. I know you put it somewhere.
He says, "Give him a moment."
Oh, he's finding it. Yeah, he'll find it. But yeah, just to go back to this was going to lead into another point I was going to make. You put even just a pair of Oliver Hazard Perrys in there. Put the Sea-Whiz on auto and just laugh hysterically as the Skyhawks just get blown out of the sky by the sea was just operating in automatic mode and engaging anything that enters its radar horizon. Just laugh hysterically. You don't even need a 3-inch at that point.
The big thing also with How you could have done is if How had been converted, she might even have a helicopter hangar facility.
She does.
Frankly, oh seriously, you would. Michael Clapp would have been crying with joy if he'd had one of those in the Falklands War.
Oh.
And I'm not even joking. You listen to you talk to him and you talk to the people who are down there, and they're going, "Yeah, we had nothing to do this with."
Yeah. While we're waiting for Z-Dollars to do that, they've brought in some things from Drake's drum. Specifically, Drake's drum, Agincourt. She's bloody terrifying.
Someday I'll torment both of you with these, but...
Yeah, just consider it a spoiler, Dr. Clark, if you look at what Dragon's posted. The 3
It is
phases
the
of
trailer.
Agincourt. The 3 phases of Agincourt.
Eyebrow.
That was my reaction as well, by the way.
I see you have questions already.
Yeah, no, that was my reaction as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my reaction as well.
Ironically, out of all of them, I actually think the mobile dockyard makes the most... not dockyard, the mobile base makes the most sense.
Honestly, it wasn't the worst idea.
Well, there's a bit of explanation that can go along with it, which is why I actually think it makes sense. There's also reasons of why she was refit into a battleship. Don't ask again.
Yeah,
it's
real.
Well, I'll answer it, but it's confusing, but
Yeah.
makes some semblance of sense.
Yeah, if Fleet ever gets his head together, pulls his finger out, and then
Oh,
eventually...
I'll be calling in favors. I'm owed like 6 at this point.
Oh, if you do realise if you call in all 6, I'll have to do it next week.
I won't. No, I'm not going to force you to do that.
I mean, I'm partially looking forward to this, partially so I can tear into these ships with an iron-toothed comb.
I want you to.
I'm looking forward to doing it, because...
What are your thoughts,
For
Clark?
once,
Because
for
you've been
once,
sort
me
of...
and- yeah, for once, me and Dr. Clark will completely agree, and we'll both tear into these ships with relish.
I'd love to know what you think of the
You see,
formerly French, now
Arching-
German fleet.
You have some interesting options here. But I think the one you're missing out on is her length to beam ratio. If you're getting rid of those guns in the middle, etc., and you really want to muck around with her, I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I'm not sure why you've added in a fifth turret when the conversion. I think you'd have kept to a twin funnel arrangement and you'd have gone for a higher speed. Because you could have, without that gun, that 5th gun, the central the Q turret, basically, you could probably be talking about, considering her length and length to beam ratio, you could have been talking a 32 knot ship, 33 knot ship.
The fact she does 28 knots is still a bit... It's...
28 knots is fine. It's fast battleship. That's fine. 28 knots is the entry level for fast battleship. That's fine.
I do like how in this
I'm
timeline...
not argue that.
I do like in this timeline Agincourt is basically just British Fuso.
But I'd say more like some of the Italian ships.
What's it called?
Gelo Cesare.
Meant to be 690 Alpha, British, but was initially designed to go with design 690, which had its 14 12-inch guns. He repented on this decision when opposed by Admirals Bakar and Alan Carr, constructed with from design 653, temporary of 690, by building it with 12 14-inch guns with a modification of machinery space. I don't know if any of those actually relate to real designs or not.
While we're just waiting for Sea Dodders...
Possible.
And on the KGV...
I've just been asked a question by AAMC, and I think there's a few other questions for me from Yormo Waifu.
Sure.
Hello,
Yeah.
Yormo.
Moe.
Moe. From AOMC, so if the US Navy goes back in time to Vietnam War or Korean War, if they go back to the Korean War, the Chinese get stomped. And honestly, frankly, with the modern weaponry, you might see the US Marine Corps not only farming the Chinese armies for HP, but actually advancing to Beijing with the level of fire support they can deliver.
Honestly, and the thing is, that's even more likely because if you consider the fact that this is a UN intervention and China's opposing a UN intervention, and PRC is not the UN Security Council member for China, that's the Republic of China, the US is going to go,
yeah,
right, we're going to reverse the Chinese Civil War. Sod this, we're not having a bloody mainland China that's communist.
No, they literally, the amount of firepower you're talking about taking it back, it's overwhelming. And honestly, if you go to the Vietnam War, that's a more complicated scenario. And mainly the big problem for the Americans was always they were fighting the war whilst trying to be nice, which is going to sound strange considering all the Agent Origin things they did. But what I mean by trying to be nice is that at no point did they do what honestly the only way they could resolve it at all would have been. And the only way you could actually resolve that conflict in any way, shape or form would have involved going into North Vietnam and doing regime change there. You're just not going to win it otherwise. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So that's the problem.
They might be able to...
They don't want to do that.
Yeah. They might have been able to extend the peace period before North Vietnam resumes the conflict with South Vietnam after they're brought to the peace table.
Well, honestly, you have to do regime change in both, because let's be honest, the South Vietnamese government was made an absolute mess of it thanks to its own internal machinations and the CIA, who kept having a different mood about what the government should be every 5 minutes. Doesn't help. The CIA can be a very good organization when it comes to intelligence gathering. When it comes to governance, it's not really an organization you want involved.
There it is.
Looking very good. But there are sort of getting through those questions. Let's see. I have Yomo waifu, is that? Or
Your Moe waifu, but yes, it's pretty much close.
Yomo waifu. Okay. I keep calling Mo rather than Moe. Opinion rivalry between the F6F, Hellcat, and the Corsair. Right. So the Hellcat is actually the easier to operate and the easier to produce in large numbers and train people up to. The Corsair is the better aircraft when you're fighting, but the Hellcat is probably my favorite aircraft of World War II. So I would say if I'm fighting World War II, I'm going to probably go with the Hellcat because that's easier and quicker to get into service and easier to get a large group into it and a pilots to train up, especially transferring up from Wildcat to the Hellcat. But the Corsair, that's the trouble, is they are both very good aircraft. One is slightly better in combat terms, one is a lot easier to train in, and that's why you have the argument, because they're both very good aircraft. And that's the thing, it's an embarrassment of riches. It's an easy decision when one aircraft is crap and one aircraft is good. When they're both great aircraft, then you have a problem.
Yeah. If I may, we've actually got a few questions for you further up. Can I quickly go through them?
Yes.
So we can actually...
While I'm looking at C. Dodder's beautiful drawing.
That will probably be reworked before the main timeline starts. Where were we?
The main thing I object to is why has Anson not been preserved as well? Because surely you need 3. Surely you need 3 vessels. Why are you just limiting this to how? Why are you limiting my love? Because, you know...
I can stretch...
Vanguard, Anson, and How would be just so lovely.
I can stretch the RN's budget a certain way and still maintain some level of realism. But I'm having to fit 4 Maltas, 4 Maltas, 4 Minotaurs, Vanguard, and How into the RN, plus God knows what the RN builds in the 80s after the Falklands. I can't stretch for a 3rd battleship.
Well, the thing is, if the battleships do well enough, who knows, they might build another battleship.
We haven't thought about that, although we may get to that.
Let's be honest, the Kirans are coming, and all those things are probably coming from the Soviets. If the British battleships have done well in the war and have been absolutely critical, especially if Vanguard's gone and, I don't know, stomped Belgrano or something like that, then
Spoilers! Shh!
there's going to be an argument. In the nicest way, it doesn't take
It's
take
not
a
exactly
Nobel
spoilers,
laureate to
actually.
figure that one out.
Well, yeah, but she didn't stomp Belgrano.
Also, I think you've got
She stomped
Sea
Rivadavia.
Dot is intrigued of a new battleship, eh?
Oh no. Well, that means that's going to be worked in. Oh, great.
Just think about it, Steve. And also think about it. You're talking in a Falcon scenario. The Royal Navy might be able to push it for free because they go, look, we needed 2 because we were using both, and we can't always guarantee the availability of 2 with only 2.
Well,
So they could actually get a 3rd. They could get 3.
So you're saying that they'll get 1 more additional battleship to bring themselves up to 3?
That's the argument.
And they might,
Yeah, that could
and
work.
it might be Queen Elizabeth, Warspite, and
Well, the thing is, they won't. They might get 2 to replace Howe, but Vanguard will probably remain, since one of the main things in the later part of the timeline is her final life extension, her Flex refit, which she gets after the Falklands War. So she'll be
Well, then, yes.
Rest.
so she'll be
Anson
remaining.
and Howe. Basically, she'll get her refit while there are 2 new ships being built.
Yeah, but what?
And the question is going to be, how big and what will they be armed with? Just imagine the debate at that time of what guns to fit on them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Oh.
How
in
old are
order,
those 15-inch guns?
so I need to. So I
would
need
you end
to.
up with something like HMS Renown?
Can we?
It's
I
modern.
would love to have this. Can we park this for a second? I need to work through these questions, and we can come back to this in a bit because I want to discuss this as much as anyone else does. But we can come back to so.
Want to be fair to others.
Yeah. Darth Sidious asks, Dr. Clark, how would your improved Bismarck class look like? And allow me, if you would, before you answer, to give my famous answer that I've given in so many ramblings before. The Fleet Scharnmark. Scharnhorst, Extendo,
That's not
4th
you.
Barbette in, 11-inch
not-
out, 15-inch in. Done.
Don't ask
Okay,
us,
so-
Clark, not you.
You want to fix Bismarck?
The terror
Is
of
that-
the sea.
Yeah, but
Is
what
it
would be your
fixing
ideal?
Bismarck?
Yeah.
Ideal version of Bismarck?
Improved version of Bismarck, that's what he said. Your
yeah.
improved
That's-
version of Bismarck, Dr. Clark.
Like, are you having? Just to clarify, are you refitting or is this a new design built one?
I think he's saying how would a Dr. Clark improved Bismarck class look like from keel up.
I would literally have taken the Scharnhorst design and scaled it up to a 15-inch gun ship with 9 15-inch guns in 3 triple turrets.
So
I would quite literally
almost
have-
German
I
Latoria,
would've-
almost.
Yes, I would have literally gone that, and I would have literally worked through everything on the Scharnhorst which worked, and I would have kept that. Everything which didn't work, I would have changed or got rid of.
So basically,
And I would be that brutal. And I would, more importantly, not anyone try to introduce the concept of a committee designing along with me. I would take them outside, put them up against a concrete wall, and machine gun both the people who suggested it and the people who would have been on the committee.
Good lord. Single...
Because there is quite a lot of good equipment in the German scenario system. It's just the fact is that it's often not used as such. It's like you could probably take. They've got some good 105mm sort of guns which you could use as a dual purpose mount if you desire to put it on a proper dual purpose mount. You've got other systems you can use. And so you could make a very efficient, very good 15-inch gun battleship by doing that and taking the Scharnhorst and growing it up as the design. It's when you try and go, right, I know better, so I'm going to now design a whole new thing from scratch. And I'm going to have lots of committees involved who are each going to be keen about putting their section in, which is why ultimately the Bismarck and Scharnhorst designs and all the German designs suffer from too many people who think they're the chef. And think their word is law in their design, and no one actually wanting to call them out of it. And the Graf Zeppelin is a classic example of suffering this. Literally, they design all the weights around them having a certain number of guns, and then there's a mistake made in the design process where the guns are doubled up. They have to try and rework everything to make it work, And no one knows where that mistake crept in, and no one claims that they actually insisted. Everyone thinks it was someone else's mistake adding it in. So the odds are someone just made a mistake, a notation error, but because no one was willing to question it, at no point did it get any pushback, and it became part of the design.
Actually, interesting.
If that happened in the Royal Navy with their designs, there is usually someone called the Third Sea Lord and someone called the Director of Naval Construction, and their entire jobs basically come down as being, well, the other scenarios, if we look at Japanese companies who have the loud American in the room, i.e. the person who will ask the question. They actually employ someone to be that role. I have a friend who is one professionally in a Japanese company. His job literally is to be the one who asks questions where none of his Japanese colleagues will, because they don't, in their culture, it's very difficult for them culturally to start questioning their bosses because of the way that everyone's been raised and everyone's sort of works. So you have someone who is going to go, "Excuse me, sir, are you on something with that idea?" And if you go to the Third Sea Lord and the Directors of Naval Construction, their literal job in that scenario, if let's say Stanley Goodall had seen the design for Ark Royal, where the guns had magically changed from what he'd agreed, what do you think his response would be? "Oh, we have to deal with this because who's put this change in, we don't know." Or would it be, "Come here, you. Okay, where have these guns come from, you moron? I'm being nice with moron. Fix it. Bye." That's the difference.
Do not make me ask again.
And that's what happens to the German construction. Yeah. That's the problem with the German construction. It's not the ideas of the ships, it's not even some of the technologies involved. It's the way they're put in and implemented because of the design structure they have. And it's the same for a lot of German technology, which is why I can sort of sympathise sometimes with the wereabouts who are going, "But this technology is amazing." You're right. But look at the way it's been implemented. It's been implemented by idiots who can't say no because they don't know who they're saying no to.
Mm-hmm.
It could be someone's nephew, which could get you shot. Or it could be just someone's made a mistake. And if you asking questions, could be what gets you shot.
So you better not to ask questions and just hope everything goes okay.
Yes.
Where were we? Ah, yes. So the next question is one I've actually been waiting for because I actually have an interesting point to make about it. Because CDOT is in response. So, what if the 1945 USN went back to the beginning of World War I? What would the war end up looking like? What would the RN's reaction be to seeing such a large US Navy? CDOT says Allied victory as before, but he's not correct, because it's important to remember exactly who is the President of the United States of America in 1914. A man who wants to put the US in a position of preeminence atop the world and utterly destroy the ability of the European powers to influence or dictate US foreign policy ever again. He was tempted to do this in 1917. In fact, he nearly attempted to do it, but unfortunately the Germans scuppered his plans by Zimmerman telegramming him and basically doing other things like that to bring the US into the war. If you give that man the 1945 US Navy, when it becomes clear that both sides are being exhausted, he will basically cut off trade to Britain, he will blockade Germany, and he will basically at gunpoint to say, you will sign a peace treaty that basically gives all of you nothing, and I'm going to give you my 14 points, and you are going to fucking put them into practice, or else.
No.
No.
You wouldn't. You are ascribing him a level of power which US presidencies only achieved after World War II. The president did not have that level of power till after World War II. Roosevelt is who and the second Roosevelt is the one who expands the power of the presidency enough to be able to do that. Lincoln didn't give it that power, and Teddy Roosevelt hadn't given it that power. Wilson also, as much as he might dream of doing that, there is the problem that he's going to be dealing with the fact that he's got to deal with both the pro-German lobby and the pro-British lobby will both be gunning for him. And whilst we always talk about the pro-German lobby in American politics, that's usually because they're the side who lose. So they're noisy, but they lose. Look at the side who normally win. And now I have actually a lovely book about the Pilgrim Society, etc., and various other things. They're one of the most successful lobbying and lobbying and relationship building organizations in the world. They probably, thanks to them, it's one of the reasons why there was never really a risk of war between Britain and America from about 1850 onwards. There really isn't much of a risk of war, thanks to them and their precedent organizations which built up into them. They are massive at building relationships between Britain and America. And every time Wilson did even consider trying to move against the Brits, there were issues faced in them, in that he was going to have to deal with Congress. And the thing is, Congress in those days was not like Congress today. They had real teeth, and they were prepared to use them.
Most of the damage that the Wilsonian administration did to the Entente War effort was financial.
Yeah, because that was the one area where he actually had the ability to influence things.
And if he tries to isolate America from Europe economically, the corporate lobby is not going to be happy. They're making fucking bank off European trade.
Yes.
He's still going to try to do something silly, though, because it's Wilson.
Yeah.
It's what the man does.
I'll be back in a second. Someone's just arrived.
Oh.
Yeah. Someone just popped in my door.
Excellent. But yes, I think you are quite correct. I had forgotten that we ascribe a lot of powers to the presidency today that it does not have.
That would be amusing, by the way. Just a surprise Drac visit.
Imagine
if that happened. Just Clark comes back and you just see Drac on the camera.
I mean,
Complete panic moment.
I wouldn't panic. It would just be, this happens on a regular. This is just.
It would be mass internal screaming.
Well, not
Yeah,
so
sorry
much.
I can't give you any more info saying about that. It's just that's all. Everything else I have to reread the books to get check.
Let me see.
Dragon, bring up the revenge class. The new revenge class after Revenge does her revenge thing.
But it's a bit weird, I agree. So, but it makes give me a second, and I'll find that.
Where did I put the But basically, you've got not Roosevelt. Fuck that racist Wilson. There we go, Wilson. Being even more bullish and doing as much as he physically can within the realms of his power, essentially, to assure American preeminence and break as much as possible the European empires.
I can't see that.
He literally tried to do everything within his power to achieve that goal.
Did you mean the resolutions, Foxo?
Is resolution the one that the new revenge is a part of?
No, that's the Dreadnought.
In terms of questions.
Like
Yeah,
post that.
Dreadnought.
Give me a second.
What if the Chinese got the French fleet from 1892? They can't maintain it. It's going to fall victim to corruption incredibly quickly. And Japan is likely to declare war on them to literally seize that fleet.
Because you have to remember, Wilson fleet was a pretty strong isolationist.
He was...
Because his whole the shining city upon a hill idea was the fact that America should be isolationist and should lead the world into a perfect utopian democracy.
Oh,
where white people are on top.
Oh, yeah, but also Wilsonianism.
Fuck the Irish.
But Wilsonianism also states that if America's interests are benefited, America has every right to intervene in any conflict in any country it so desires.
Yeah.
So,
which was America's interests were pretty much at this point defined by, oh, the Mexicans are doing something. We don't want the Mexicans to do anything.
Yeah,
by Mexico.
yes and no. It's a nice theory, but unfortunately, the Americans were no longer the just focus on America anymore. That died in 1897 when the Spanish-American War broke out. The Americans were
but they're not, though.
isolationist, but Wilson was very aware of just what the European war represented and exactly what America could gain by having it end in a bloody stalemate where everyone's weak and nobody wins. Where America, where America can stand on its shining hill and say, "Oh, you poor Europeans fighting this silly war over imperialism. You silly people, how dare you not listen to the great and good of America who are telling you not to fight this silly war over imperialism. Now take our loans so we can squeeze you dry over the next 40 years."
Moe asked, requested you do a question, please.
Oh?
No idea what's covered. Here's an oldie. How would the original frigates do if they were active during the Civil War?
The same way that other US frigates did at the time. They would be doomed if they encountered an ironclad, but otherwise they would be roaming the seas, protecting Union trade, or enforcing blockades on various Confederate ports. That's because we know what the Union's sail and steam frigates did during the American Civil War. That's what they did. They either roamed the seas looking for Confederate raiders, or they were on blockade duty off of Confederate ports. They are perfectly capable of fulfilling that role. They can be rearmed with more modern guns. That's not an issue. There is, in fact, some of the original Big Six frigates did serve in the American Civil War in a limited capacity. Wasn't that far removed from their construction in terms of age of sail warships, anyway. Oh god, Sane's just talking about those dumb battle carriers. That's far aft. That's far aft and faintly, and we don't talk about far aft and faintly because far aft and faintly. Yeah, far aft and faintly is just very.
Not familiar,
very,
I'm afraid.
It's the one with the dumb Dutch. Basically, the Dutch decide that the Far East is threatened, so they buy Tiger, Iron Duke, and.
Oh god! Now that I've seen the image of it, we've talked about this before, haven't we?
And then they convert them into. And then they
weird battle carrier thing.
Yeah, and they all convert them into battle carriers, and then they're in Singapore, and the Japanese attack, and these Dutch battle carriers fire blindly into the sea, and everyone thinks this is a great idea, and somehow Dutch Fokker 21s beat Zeros every single time, and Dutch biplane bombers from these three battle carriers all somehow kill the Japanese Navy, and it's basically nationalist propaganda for the Dutch.
I will agree, Hood. The art does actually look quite nice, honestly.
But it's good art, but everything else is just aggressively silly. It's not even good alt history.
At least the Drake's drum stuff, as much as there's many questions you can raise and argue, and I would agree with, at least there's some semblance of semi-sense. This just seems very silly.
Yeah, it's... They also
But what do you mean, Dragon? The Germans trying and failing sea line is very historically accurate. If they tried it.
I actually love how that goes.
I assume it fails miserably for them.
Yeah.
They land in the UK. Then things go wrong when Britain decides to ram HMS Revenge off the coast to start bombarding their people they put on shore.
So literally, they get ashore. And that's as far as they get.
And then it goes wrong.
And that's they don't even get inland. That's it. They get ashore, and that's it.
They get to a couple of villages inland, basically.
Wow.
They essentially they get past the cliffs, straight into the Dover marshes. If anyone's been to inland Kent, especially the southern part of it, you will know that place is fucking horrible, even though most of it's been drained since World War II.
One of the things that happens is Hitler decides to promote the commander to field marshal to try and get him to stay. The person who's sent to do this, he tells them, No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to die pointlessly and kill all my men. I don't care if I'm the first field marshal in history. I'm surrendering.
God damn.
I'm not going to waste the lives of these men. Because at best, the only thing they were getting across was PT boat sort of style thing of supplies.
Oh my sweet Jesus! There's no way. And of course, I presume
they were promised
the RNs
they were
driving
promised
into the
air support. That didn't
arrive.
happen.
Yeah, of course. The fat Goering couldn't just deliver it. Give me a second. I'll be back in a minute. I'll let you talk about that because you know Drake's drum. I do not.
Actually, if you're still there saying, do you want to see what, in my opinion, one of the most cursed ships in Drake's drum?
Whilst that's going on, I'm going to very quickly touch upon issues with Sea Line in that in order for Sea Line to actually work, it requires, Coastal Command to stop doing anything, pretty much. The issues with Sea Line are not limited exclusively to the German inadequacies of mounting a naval invasion of the British Isles. This also requires the entirety of the Royal Navy in Europe to be just not doing anything and ignoring the situation. Bearing in mind that had Sea Line gone ahead, the Germans would have needed something like thousands of barges, small craft, then also major surface vessels to do things like aerial protection.
Oh, they had the fleet. Keyword on had.
No, they had the fleet in 1939.
No, I'm referring to Drake's drum. In Drake's drum, they have a much larger fleet.
I'm talking about historically, because critical context is required for this.
Sorry.
When it comes to actually mounting Sea Lion, the Germans would have needed a vast fleet of small craft, of barges, of transport ships, things that the German military simply doesn't have. In a land war, the German military can put up that kind of fight. Mounting a naval invasion of arguably one of the most protected territories in Europe against, at the time, the largest single navy in Europe, most of which is still in Europe, and knocking about the British Isles, doing things like preventing Dogger Bank raids and whatnot on British territory.
Yeah, Drake's drum can get a bit silly.
Oh no, this is talking about IRL here.
IRL, the Germans were never going to mount Sea Lion. In no one's right mind was that going to actually happen without the Royal Navy suddenly sorting everything, and then it being a race to the finish to see who could get there fast enough and sink everything. And that's not even counting things like the RAF suddenly pulled from things like patrolling the south part of the UK against German bombers to then go ahead and start strafing the landing ships and the supply columns. It is a strategic and tactical level undertaking that the Germans simply do not have the resources or manpower for. It was never going to happen.
Yeah, what gets about Sea Lion is they're picking the worst possible part of the southern UK to invade. Because you have the Dover Cliffs, which means you're very restricted in the places you can actually land around Kent and Sussex. And then you've got the issue of it's marshland, inland.
They honestly would have been better sailing into the mouth of the Thames and then trying to take their chances that way, because there's much less shit to deal with in terms of actual ground territory. They would have to then contend with things like
the Thames Marshes.
The Thames Marshes, which is not great. However, there's also the fact that that part of the mouth is also quite heavily patrolled by things like naval gunboats. Not very much, but it's still enough to be like, yo, unidentified vessels, German flags, scramble everything. They honestly would have been better off launching from Cherbourg and just heading straight for the Isle of Wight and then further westward.
Honestly,
instead of the Straits of Dover.
Taking the Isle of Wight, both as a practice run and B as a partially realistic objective that could be taken, is something that
they're not good there. They can't take the Isle of Wight.
No,
that's absolute hell to land on.
It's more realistic than trying to land on the UK.
Yeah, I guess.
Isn't it literally within artillery range of the mainland?
No,
Yeah.
It is. But
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Kind of.
It is and it isn't. But it's also like the garrison. Like if the Germans land enough shit quickly enough, and if they land paratroopers as well, like to secure the ports to ensure that the British can't send reinforcements. Like it's an objective that, if you look at it, it is just about within the realms of possible realism for them to possibly pull off.
I see you having the same problem as they had in Drake's Drum. Yes, you make a landing somehow. Yes, you get all this work. But then the question is, now what? You're now surrounded by the British, and you can't really fight out of here.
And there's a very, very high likelihood that you will not be resupplied. Because of the aforementioned issues of the Royal Navy is suddenly putting to sea in force in the Channel and the North Sea, and possibly the Irish Sea to prevent them from coming up from France and looping around. You're fucked.
So I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility that it could be done. It's just if you've done it, you have consigned those divisions to die.
Oh no, I'm not saying I'm not saying it's feasible. Yeah. Nor am I saying that it's a long-term thing. I get that. But I was just saying, in terms of you could, like, if you launched your, like, especially if you accepted that it's going to be a small sea-based contingent, so you use fast MTBs or you rush German destroyers down the channel to get down there to act as fast landing. Just some form of fast-moving naval vessel to get the land component ashore, and you accept that the main bulk of the fighting is going to be done. It's going to have to be done by paras, basically. You're going to have to time it so that the seaborne contingent arrives as the paras are fighting / securing ports and the island, basically.
Oh yes, I forgot.
I think it was Lakehurst or Sandhurst, one of the big institutes, wargamed out all the possible locations for Sea Lion, and they found that landing in Cornwall gave the best chance of success, which is on the other side of the UK the Nazis were planning to land in.
That's actually part of the reason why in I think the current version of TNO, the mod, has Cornwall be what is essentially the German garrison in England, because that's where they landed instead of on the east coast. Yes, it has Plymouth, however...
It's terrain you can land in.
It's far easier to actually deploy forces there in a naval invasion coupled with paratroopers compared to basically anywhere else in the UK. Unless you want to count the Midlands, but no one does because the Midlands sucks. Anyway.
Hey! Oh, no, wait, I'm not in the Midlands.
Thanks for reminding the Moe that Drake's Drum actually has a tank appendix.
Oh, no.
They didn't leave that out.
Oh god.
Also, we're also speculating on who has arrived to see Dr. Clark.
Well, no, there was the joke of it would be amusing if Clark turned his camera back on and Drax just sitting there.
I'm going to ask him when he comes back, because I'm just the curiosity is just going to be...
Actually, give me a second, I'll see. Actually, you're going to be disappointed then, Sayed. The French army is not in the list of appendices.
Because
you've got the Spanish army and the Pakistan army, but not the French.
Of course.
Yeah. Because
why not have an invasion of the UK and include the Spanish?
No,
I think they failed to do three times.
The Spanish.
No, they don't invade the Spanish.
From what I understand, and my knowledge is very limited, the Spanish get involved in the second part of the Second World War. They get involved in the second Hitlerian War, not the first Hitlerian War. What do you mean
Yeah, so they essentially get strong-armed into it by going, you get involved on our side or we invade you. POV, you hit.
Not with 100,000 of the Wehrmacht's finest could we hope to take the rock. It is impenetrable. Francisco Franco to Adolf fucking Hitler.
Yes, but this is a Hitler that has gone even further off the deep end.
And also,
because technically speaking, he kept winning.
Yeah, he won.
Yeah,
like the war ends in the First World War, or the Second World War, it ends in 1940, because it's Drake's Drum Britain led by Mosley.
And what end? Well, actually, I think most.
Oh, never mind. I ignore all of this then, because it is from someone who is essentially giving power to fascists. Okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. Apart from the fact that he lost the first time, got in the second time, and by the second time he was not allowed to be a fascist.
Yeah, he got in. He got in before he joined the B.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Basically,
the British
so
Brown
he's-
shirts. He got in when he was still a part of Labour.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He doesn't get radicalised.
As in the entire political
okay.
scene is different because of things that happen. Churchill gets run over by a car, unfortunately.
Oh.
On the
shame.
one hand, funny, but on the other hand, based. Anyway,
He got out of the car, failed to check the wrong side of the road because he was in New York and was hit by a car.
Which happened historically, but instead of being injured, he dies.
he bounced.
Yeah.
Instead of off the bonnet, he bounced out of life.
Yeah.
Also, Pakistan got separately because Britain in 1935-ish agreed to allow the Dominion of India and the Dominion of Pakistan to exist separately,
Hey.
Oh, so
Does
they
it-
actually went through with Lord Lithingew's plan.
basically.
Was it actually that plan, or did they actually like separate Bangladesh from Pakistan, or have it be one Pakistan surrounded?
I'd have to go back through it all again. It's been a little bit, but basically things happen. They do happen differently in a way that, at least in some regards, makes the minorest amount of sense. It's not a complete. Yes, they managed to do this because we hand waved it mostly.
And
There's at least some chance of this.
Yeah. What I will say, from what I've seen, from what I understand, basically because the reason that Britain capitulates is because the US just says no financial aid for you.
No financial aid, no what's called material aid.
And also no Churchill to keep the population going, so... Yeah.
Basically, it just ended up simply of Britain ran out of money, and it's technically called a surrender, but even the Germans admit, no, this is just, we can't possibly take them. It's just Britain going, look, we're financially out of money here. We have to
I
stop.
can understand
You
it.
also can't.
Yeah, the Americans and the British essentially spend the 20s in an arms race, with the British doing weird thing, sort of being sketchy with their World War One debt. So when the British go to get loans in World War Two, the Americans go, no.
At least...
Also, the problem, and also due to how US isolationism happens due to different presidents, the fact that Huey Long almost won,
Yeesh.
almost, doesn't actually, basically, Roosevelt isn't, and the various presidents are not able to push through the policies to help Britain that he wanted to.
And then, of course, you've got the incredibly interesting shenanigans that are somehow Britain actually, building a massive fleet after they've lost the war to Hitler. Well, not lost, but, been forced to sign a peace with Hitler.
It's more of a case of, right, I was waiting for this one. Basically, they couldn't afford to keep a war up, but they can afford to keep the economy going. But also,
And of course,
as happens later, by 1946, they admit, yeah, by the end of this, we are going to have to depend on someone else. The Empire has helped us, and we'll keep the Empire, but...
Of course, Imperial Preference is still doing its... Because, of course, there's no war to force the British to abandon Imperial Preference, which was actually doing its job in the 30s, of actually fixing Britain's economy.
I can't remember, I think they... I don't know.
Although
it's either,
although
it's one or the others of these, but I can't remember if they have... What did Britain do historically with the gold standard? Did they keep it or swap
They
it?
abandoned the gold standard.
Right, that's the one.
They were
British
forced to return to
refused
it.
to abandon. Yeah,
Yeah, they were
Britain
forced.
refused to abandon it.
Yeah, because the way that Neville Chamberlain attempted to fix and actually was succeeding in fixing the British economy and financial situation in the 30s was basically he abandoned the gold standard in a provisional sense, and he also established Imperial Preference, which were the first British trade tariffs in a very long time, which helped the British industries compete with the US.
Yeah, it was the first ever record. It was the first incident of British mercantilism since the revoking of the Corn Laws.
Though, also, Fleet, you say you don't understand. It's a bit tricky to understand how Britain could afford this. Due to the Imperial Defence Conference of 1940, as well as the Imperial Defence Conference of 1936, all members of the Commonwealth must attribute a portion of their income to the United Kingdom's defence.
Which basically therefore means that the UK can also afford to defend them heavily as well.
Well, they are also by law required to pay a percentage portion to maintain their own force. I believe for all majors, they are expected to keep at least one capital ship, so you get Canada, Australia, and a couple of others. India mostly worms their way out of it.
Which makes sense, to be fair. India's contribution is
They're
better served
basically
by aircraft
they're
and army.
expected basically there to have a small destroyer squadron basically protect their coast and shipping in the area.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the fact they haven't the Empire to help them and have pre-set up laws around this allows them to keep up a military build-up as required.
I still go... I mean, I understand that there's a fair bit of... MacGuffin.
That's why
British get some loan forgiveness from America, don't they? Because it starts coming out what the Nazis are doing in Europe.
Yeah, in the build-up to the Second Hitlerian War, Britain basically goes, yeah, no, they're literally using slave labor death camps, even on the French. And by this point, Roosevelt has managed to basically knock some sense into Congress and go, look, we've got this massive ocean. Yes, we've got this massive ocean between us.
And also, we
the
literally
problem
kind of allowed this by not supporting the British.
This is partly our fault, but also, so yes, Germany will never be able to threaten us.
Yeah,
Circa the third book. Circa the third book.
Yeah, sure. Looks at the expansive German fucking fleet.
Circa the part where Boston gets nuked. But anyway, ignoring that minor bit, basically it's a case of, well, when there's no longer anyone else left in the free world, who are we meant to be trading with here? Also, yes, the Two Ocean Act, I believe, was indeed passed.
Just very late.
Yeah. It took Congress... part of the Naval Disarmament Conference is literally Britain bluffing the US Congress. Because they allowed the US to build more ships. The US Navy was happy with this, and they got the treaty signed. Congress then refused to release the funding for these extra ships until much later. Because I believe they end up getting 4 Colorado class?
Yeah, I think.
Quickly double checking because I've got the appendices in front of me. Tennessee's. Yes, Colorado, Maryland, Georgia, and West Virginia. And then you get the Oregon class battleships on top of that.
Yeah.
Which were laid up in 1920.
Dr. Clark's back. Hey,
welcome back.
Apologies. A family friend who's an electrician had said, I'll pop round some point this week to help you out with, sorting out the electrics before you move. Okay, fine. Didn't call us, had literally arrived, and didn't know what he was supposed to be doing.
That's fair.
No, because no one had expected him to turn up on Bank Holiday Monday. Because when he said this week, we were expecting it to be sort of some point further in the week, and he called in advance. But then he's very kindly turned up and went, hello, I'm here to help. And I went,
what do you need help with?
And then he goes, oh no, go back to anything, I want to work on my own. I went, you sure you don't need any help? No, it's fiddly electrics. I went, I don't mind, I like doing fiddly electrics, but okay, fine. I'm presuming he's had a bad Bank Holiday Monday, and so this is his stress relief to come and handle electrics quietly on his own.
Sorry, go on.
He's a very nice guy, but he's deaf, and even at his age, his hearing aids don't always work. So I just spend a day lip reading. So sometimes he really likes to just be no humans and just concentrate on the electric task in front of him.
In response to what
you learn to understand it, basically.
In response to your gunner officer, in this they actually built 6 Iowas, 6 Montanas, and 3 Wyomings.
Why Wyoming?
Wyoming circa 1942.
Which are far bigger.
I can explain what they are.
61,000 ton battleships with 9 3x3 18s.
Yeah, everyone's got at least one ship with 18-inch guns or something equivalent to it.
Basically. Of all the 18-inch guns battleships, I'm not sure what you think, Clark, but I at least like to think this makes some sense instead of some of the other variants I've seen.
Well, I suppose. Hang on. Let me see. There's only a few questions before we actually the Drake's Drum discussion starts. So let me very quickly work through these.
Yeah, finish those. Yeah, I was mostly just doing this while Clark was gone.
And then I guess we're doing this today then.
We can at least cover minor bits if people have any suggestions they want to hear about.
What if in
For a little bit. I'll do about half an hour, and then I've got a nice dinner being cooked for me.
Hey,
so
disappear whenever you wish.
Yeah. What if in circa 36-37 there was a NATO-like alliance to counter the Axis and USSR threats, members of the US, British Dominions, France, and the rest of Western Europe, but there are no Eastern European nations involved in the alliance? Would World War II have happened IRL, later or earlier than IRL? How would the naval aspect look, since the US fleet would be forward deployed to NATO and also the member states would have probably had countless joint exercises pre-war? Depends entirely on how the Axis views the strength of that alliance. How they view its commitment to war.
It's going to depend how they responded to the Abyssinia crisis. That's literally going to be a litmus test. How does it respond to the Abyssinia crisis? How does it respond to the Spanish Civil War?
Yeah. If the response to the Abyssinia crisis is firm, and the Italians are forced to back down, then they will have been sent a very clear message. If not, then that'll be the first crack. If the alliance then responds heavily to the Spanish Civil War, and basically, if they discover German and Soviet intervention on either side, go, oi, get out, or else, then that may restore the alliance's image. If they also fail there, however, then you've basically got Germany, Italy, Japan, and others looking and going, this alliance it doesn't matter. It's not a threat to us.
No, yeah.
But that's basically it, because in terms of how the naval aspect would look, it's impossible to tell. Because you've got so many different variations. Is there a joint naval program? Are the British and Americans collaborating on certain things? Like, how are the fleets divided? What's the USN's deployments here? How much of the USN is still in the Pacific?
Well, you are not looking at. You see, half the reason we do the joint programs we do today is because no one's producing enough of their own stuff domestically. So they're trying to pool the research and development costs. In this period, everyone's still building enough domestically that they're not going to do. They're not going to start. How do I put it? Singeing their domestic industrial tail to do a joint construction program.
I meant operational planning rather than joint military.
Operational planning. You've probably got a continuation. If this alliance had been formed at any point, it's going to be end of World War One. So they're probably going to have continued on the thinking from then. So it's going to be a continuation of the alliance structure they had in World War One. And if we consider that was by the end of World War One, that was proficient.
Yeah. You might also see certain things. So, for example, the French.
The interesting thing is going to be if Sims hung around for longer in this period. So, Sims, because of the alliance relationship, Sims stays on for longer in the U.S. Navy. It's not basically kicked out at Rear Admiral after a stint back at the Naval College, where he develops the whole doctrine which leads to their whole carrier program, etc., and things like that. If Sims stays around for longer in this scenario, you could see a far more integrated Royal Navy and US Navy in terms of operational outlook. Although King will still be annoyed with Peasy, but King might actually meet other officers who he likes in the Royal Navy instead.
Yeah. Jellicoe might.
So let's say
Jellicoe might stick around for longer until he dies.
Jellicoe can't stick around for longer. In a nicer way, he's kicked out. He's too politically scary to people. He's too much of a straight shooter. He doesn't... the classic example is his free fleet plan and all the other things he puts in. They are too much a logical product and sensible thing. They're not presented in a way the political class can really enjoy. I know we like to think it's a modern thing, but it really isn't.
Yeah. Another question. I don't think there's anything else on that. But basically, apart from the combined fleet stomping any Italian and German sortie into the dust whenever it happens.
Yeah. Honestly, the main thing you could get is, of course, it's going to sound strange, but with a combined fleet working together, the British might adopt higher pressure boilers because... Not because they have the technology developed now, when they had the technology dead. But the thing was, they didn't feel the pressure to do so. Because their boilers could do what they want, and they could do logistically, they could put it all together and make it all work, and training-wise. But in closer integration is also going to mean to a level of closer competition. Because remember, it's competing between friends. And if you just think about it, who are your toughest competitions with? The ones which you're most likely to engage in petty one-upmanship with? Is it your enemies or your friends?
Friends.
Think about your friend. Think about your relationships with your friends. Who are you most likely to get if they have something nice? Are you gonna go? Well, actually, no, that's a good idea. I might get that as well, and have that as well. Is it your friends or your enemies? Your friends. So if the Americans are holding out for higher pressure and are doing that, the British might look at it and go, you know what? Perhaps we should push some higher pressure. Go for 450 psi rather than 300. And that could be really interesting. Because that could lead to a lot of changes. For example, when you're putting new boilers in Warspite and Queen Elizabeth and Valiant. If they're 450 rather than 300. 20, not Queen Elizabeth?
Oh god. That's going to be terrifying as all hell.
Just also imagine Renown when she's been adapted.
Jesus.
New boilers.
36 not renowned?
Yeah.
You can't run away now, child.
Shardos and Nightingale will no longer be able to run away. They will be locked in Mortal Kombat.
Indeed.
With no choice.
You go to Gunner Officer, in regards to your question about the Malta and CVA-01s being in service in the 60s to the 80s. Keep a hold on that one. There will be a very, 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 very long discussion on that in a couple of weeks' time when I manage to get everyone together. You'll get a very detailed description of what the RN's air groups will be, what their carriers will be like. Yeah, trust me.
You get a very detailed debate of what they're going to be.
Yeah, trust me. Just hold off on that. Like we can give that question a lot.
I
more
think
detail.
you're planning on having both myself and Drakinefeld there.
If I can get Drac, bless him. I don't want to.
Look, the thing is, don't address the invite to him. Address the invite to the important person in the family. Princessa Drakinefelia.
Will that work?
Invite the princess and her butler.
I am not brave enough to try that. I'm not brave enough to try that. If you want to relay that message from me, Dr. Clark, go ahead, but I'm not sending that myself.
Just, of course, Philippe, what you need to do is get a proper fountain pen, write it on, proper...
I don't know where he lives!
Nice quality pens.
I can't
write it out.
Take a
letter.
Make sure you seal it
take a
with a
picture of
wax
it, and it's got to be properly addressed. She is an absolute superstar.
Oh god.
He is a very lucky and very proud papa.
I would imagine.
As he should be.
Yeah.
Right.
So, a quick question, Mark. I've heard a lot of people say it's good and bad. What's your opinion on CVA-01? In the original timeline?
As in CVA-01 as designed, which the RN obviously never built.
CVA-01.
It's actually it's a very interesting design. There's a lot of interesting points in there, and I would like to see how it worked out, because I think they would work, because they did a lot of testing and a lot of development to try and make it work. But saying that, it's also going to be incredibly interesting seeing how they work. It's one of those scenarios where when you look at it, you're honestly asking the question, okay, we've got this. what are we doing with this? What's it about? And I think I have this sneaking suspicion it would have worked out quite well, and the entire reason I have the sneaking suspicion it would have worked out quite well is because the Royal Navy had gone through some truly wacky designs to try and figure out what they wanted to do with CVA-1 and what they wanted them for. They're not going to be the largest carriers ever built, and that's most people's main objections, and they would like bigger ships. But honestly, the Royal Navy is compromising, as always, with the Treasury. The Treasury said, you can have a ship of up to this size. So that's what the Royal Navy's maxed out, and the Royal Navy's got that ship. I think what they are looking for with them is also quite sensible. They're looking for, basically, naval aviation efficiently and effectively at the right price for Britain's current budget at that time. So I think they would have been good. I think they might well have been found... I think a fair number of people comparing them to US supercarriers are right when they say they aren't going to be the same as the supercarriers. They're not. But I think they could have been, like the Invincible class turned out to be, they could end up being a design which a lot of medium rank powers start going, oh, we can have a fleet carrier on our budget. And that's what they are. A fleet carrier on a medium powers budget. Which means they don't generate the same level of force and same capabilities as a supercarrier. They won't. They're never going to.
Makes sense. Right.
I've just been beat that food will be ready shortly, so any other questions from me
very
before
swiftly,
I run away, so I'm not rude to people.
Yeah, very swiftly, I think we'll just get to the first of the Drake Drum ships that Drac has shown, which is the Scharnhorsts in Drake Drum.
Which is just one that jumped to my mind because you were talking about Scharnhorst style, but bigger.
This is the Scharnhorst as they appear in Drake's Drum. Although that is Scharnhorst in 45.
Is there a design?
No, it's not.
For them
oh no, that's not what I wanted.
Where's the tab again? I've got so many of these open currently.
That's what I wanted. There we go.
It's German ground vehicles, Kriegsmarine.
I got it.
Moltke. Class battleship.
Just above Moltke is the Scharnhorst.
And why are they being called battle cruisers?
Because they are battle cruisers.
Good question.
In this, apparently.
Well, they're 36,000 tons for one. Is meant to be part of the reason.
They're lightly armored as
peculiar,
well. They are battle cruisers. They're not battleships in this. They are definitely battle cruisers. They do not have the armor protection to stand in the way that a Scharnhorst could historically. They've only got an 8.6-inch belt. They're not.
They're actually based off E3C.
Not belt. It's coverage.
Yeah,
it's not belt. It's coverage.
I wish I had more to give you about that.
Okay. All right. So, what's the question about these ships?
It's more just your opinion on them. Do you think that they are better or worse than the Scharnhorst that we got? I suppose just discussion. I suppose. Thoughts?
Well, they've got 9.35 350mm guns, or 13.8 inches. Pretty good gun set.
I believe these are meant to be new 13-inch guns. These are not the same as the World War Ones.
I would hope they're not. So I'm just going to hope they're not. Okay, I'm presuming they're not. I presume they weren't because it said 54 after them. So I'm presuming they're 54 caliber 13.8, which also means someone's actually managed to build a 54 caliber battleship gun, which is a interesting scenario. That's a whole. At a certain point, I'd be worried about barrel droop, but I'm presuming they've dealt with that. Because those barrels are going to weigh a lot. Do you realize that's the reason the 16-inch 50s are 16-inch 50s, right?
Yeah.
Because beyond that, they started to have barrel droop. And that was a lot of investment by the US Navy to try and get beyond 50. And the British just cut off at 45 because of barrel wear. So 54, you're going to have a lot of barrel wear, and you're going to have a potential droop.
To be fair, though, that does sound a very German thing to do, designed by committee. That does sound like a very It sounds like
the main
something the
advan-
Nazis would do, to be fair, Dr. Clark.
Yes.
From what we've
It
got
does.
from the little blurb explaining it, basically the reason they went with these guns is they had a quite good penetration and range characteristics. It does not bring up barrel life, however, but does mention they completely failed their initial reload rate. They were meant to have 8 and 18-second reload, but in actual service, it was 45-second reload period.
That doesn't surprise me, although that's very slow for this caliber of gun and size and caliber of gun.
Although what I
That
would
would
say,
make me
could
worry
that be
about the
pos-
breach mechanism.
Could that be possible also due to the actual sheer weight of the barrels, perhaps, or is that?
So you mean that's not just reload time, that's cycle reload time. Oh good lord. That if that's the case, if it's because of the way that sort of their barrels, they have to load them at a specific angle, and they are going to take time to load because of the weight of the barrels. You're having to manage and maneuver the mechanism very carefully. Oh
record,
good god!
This is also their second class of battle cruisers.
I've got the
quote,
first.
unquote. No, you don't.
Yes,
Oh,
I
you brought it up. Good, nice.
So the thing that gets me is bearing in mind what we talked about in regards to naval infrastructure. You're looking at the Germans building this pair of Hippocasts, which are admittedly smaller than the Scharnhorst we know from our timeline, but are basically the Scharnhorst we know, but as battle cruisers, basically.
Now, also,
then
just
you've
because
got-
it is mentioned by name, I'm just going to quickly post this one. Sorry for talking over your fleet.
And
Because it
then-
explicitly mentions by name, Hipper and Scharnhorst are designed to counter Frunz, which is a Russian reconstruction.
We don't talk about Frunz. She's horrific and awful and just horrifying.
I know, but I'm just doing this because I'm just saying.
Why
this
are
for
we
context.
talking about Frunz?
because in
both
Drake's
Hipper and Scharnhorst were made to counter it.
in
basically.
Drake's Drum, the Russians have this fantastic idea to gut the Hulk of Frunz and rebuild her as some sort of quasi.
You say this fantastic. You say this fantastic
No,
idea.
You'll notice
They
how
do one of
you'll,
these.
you'll notice how I said the word fantastic. I put no spin on it at all because it was
So she
not.
gets Krusty Kremmed.
She's like the Russians claim all sorts of bells and whistles on her, but she is admitted by basically everyone to be a terrible ship that's terrible to operate. She has hull cracking across her entire service career. She never reaches her design speed of 25 knots. She has faulty boilers, bad engineering. She nearly blows herself apart when she fires her guns the first time.
Fleet. No. You made a mistake here. What do you mean intended speed of 25 knots? Her intended speed was 30. 25 is what they managed to eke out of her.
That's all they could bloody reasonably hope for.
Because they tried to stick 184 shaft horsepower, 1,000 shaft horsepower, but that literally tore it apart.
But
Okay, so I'm just gonna start off with the Scharnhorst class here. The main problem I have with this as a concept, apart from I'm fairly sure that the barrel mechanism and the full gun system is dying every 5 minutes under the weight of those barrels, but leaving that all to one side, the main issue I'm having here is what unholy gods of steel mongery do the Royal Navy and the US Navy produce as counters to when these ships appear.
Oh, right.
And I'm not talking about when they appear in service, I'm talking about the moment they're laid down.
So,
The Royal Navy will go and crack open a design scheme from 1920, update it with modern engines, and launch it before this one gets
Is
into
this
service.
Hawk Dragon? Is this
Right.
Hawk where the
No.
Hawk comes in?
So, I should need to mention, World War I went a bit differently. Notably,
Oh.
the Battle of Jutland went far better for the Royal Navy.
woohoo!
Because during the Battle of the Falklands, they had managed to get a number of survivors from Scharnhorst and Gneisenau there, and they've learned that the shells were exploding on impact, not penetrating the armor. This that worked its way through High Command, and also, due to the almost disastrous Battle of Dogger Bank, where the same thing happened, a couple of the admirals, basically when they were back in England to celebrate the triumph of the Falklands, started talking about this issue.
Jellicoe
got-
was literally pushing for this before the war, so it's not surprising that if
BT,
if
uh,
evidence comes in.
this-
I've done a video about that.
Yeah,
This
like,
got to Jellicoe and Beatty.
if
They
ev-
went ballistic.
well, yeah,
This
if,
went up to Fisher. Fisher basically kicked the door in of ordnance.
yeah, if Jellicoe finds out that his recommendations haven't been followed through in World War One, he is gonna go fucking ballistic.
Well, this is why by the Battle of
He knew
Jutland,
his
you had
recommendations hadn't been followed through. He just didn't have proof that it mattered.
Whereas now he has
By the,
proof.
by the Battle of Jutland, the Royal Navy's been equipped with new Green Boy shells.
Here we go.
This also led to the...
I've done that as a video as well.
This led to HMS Endeavour as of 1916, because they do a lot of different things. The Invincibles of 1922.
Yeah, the Washington Naval Treaty is a lot less
goes differently.
Stringent, shall I just say?
Yesn't. It is. It's still quite stringent.
The Washington Naval Treaty never actually happens in this scenario, does it?
No, it does, but it's just a lot
It's-
less stringent, and I do mean
So,
a lot
it's
less
called-
stringent.
It is called the London Naval
Why are the Royal
Disarmament
Navy
Conference.
getting 16-inch gun battleships in this scenario?
Yes, they are. And they're getting
question is why?
16-inch battle cruisers. They get. I'll just very.
Question is why?
Why?
Oh.
Primarily, Germany is mostly being defeated. The US is also still building up in this period. It's the quality of arms race sort of thing. It's meant to be continuing.
Well, the Royal Navy weren't going 16 inch, they're going 16 and a half inch.
16.5s. This is a point that's raised against Drake's drum. We don't know why they go 16-inch.
Because someone believed that Nelson and Rodney were where things were going?
Nelson and Rodney are actually different, as well as you can see.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Oh,
basically,
those are the Invincibles. These is Nelson and Rodney.
Fleet, literally look above where you're posting.
Oh, for fuck's sake! At least I've got the blurbs in mine.
But basically, so London Naval Disarmament Treaty limits all battleships to 35,000 tons, with the improvement on an escalator clause to include, if anyone's doing things, to raise up to 38,000 tons. Which is why Nelson's 38,000.
Again, why would they have that? You're not going to have that treaty, and the whole point was 35,000 tons was that pretty much everything other than hood fitted underneath that scenario, so they could put it in.
You mentioned hood.
They're not going to agree any treaty where there are a huge number of ships which outweigh it.
I know.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah, part of the main thing with the treaty is Britain is refusing to stop building battleships entirely, basically, because their exact wording. So feel free to rip this apart. Is during the time of the First World War, basically all of their ship they've been on an extended building holiday from when the armament is from the end of the First World War through the Naval Disarmament Conference, which means they've already had about 8 years of no capital ship building. They then bring it back.
Why would they?
Partly money, partly governments.
We've been, both me and Drac have been over this many times. Why would they? They're not bankrupt. They're building ships at the end of World War One. They literally are ordering new ships after World War One. They are not bankrupt. They are building. And if they've won the Battle of Jutland, that's going to change things dramatically even more and could end the war dramatically quicker. So again, this is not logically standing up.
No, this is what I say. This is what I said, Dr. Clark, when I first saw this.
From when I read it, it's a case of that they stop building ships while they're demobilizing. They have massive issues.
They didn't.
They are still building.
And this time they did.
This timeline gets sillier all the time.
It does, and I'm not. Hey, this is why I've wanted you to rip this apart. Hey,
just for example, if I am ripping this shit apart, it's bad. If Fleet is ripping this apart, it's bad.
Because for one of the things you get is HMAS Endeavour.
Oh, you can't be serious.
I'm being serious.
Oh, for the love of Mike, what is that?
That is the second of the hood of the Admiral class battle cruisers.
What?
That was while on the slipway, basically still after the keel was laid but no work had been done, was redesigned and was then sold to Australia later. Because part of this conference is, I mentioned Fleet earlier, that every nation needs to have a capital ship in the Commonwealth, basically.
How on earth did the US agree to that? Simple.
The US were also allowed to build a large number of ships. Japan was allowed 2 Amagis. The US was allowed to build 4 Colorado class. in total.
I feel like the US is getting the... So
They were
hang-
also allowed to
hang on.
build 2 other battleships of, I think, 40,000 tons. As well. But the problem is,
bloody
this
well
is
think so.
Run. What Britain ends up trying to do here is, due to the fact that basically the US is hedging their bets on the Congress is going to be stingy with the US budget, which they were and weren't, because you end up getting all 4 Colorado classes with some grumblings, but you do also then later get. I just need to see if I can
All
quickly
4
bring it back.
Oregons.
Yes, the Oregon class battle cruisers. Or battleship.
No.
Yeah,
Fast
battleships, sorry.
battleships. They're
Which are
fast
4
battleships.
Yeah.
As in they are true.
Which are laid down in the 20s.
In fact, I'd arguably say that the US, given the specs of these things, I'd arguably say the US walks away with a better deal here. Because what they've got with the Oregons
kind of agree.
is a fast battleship. Like, despite all of the silliness here, if you compare the Oregons to the Invincibles, if I can find them, where are they? Somewhere. Bloody hell. They've just disappeared on me.
I'm glad I'm not the only one having these issues.
I'm still... I mean, there's a lot of flaws here with the whole concept. But in terms of theoretical designs that someone's clearly put a lot of work into, given the precedent they've been given, they're not the worst things I've ever imagined. They're not impossible ships.
Yeah, Treaty of 1922 permitted...
Internal logic makes no sense fitting with any historical point to which they'd have jumped off from.
Yes, that as well. I'm talking about the ships alone. But
so yes, in the end...
The ship designs themselves, you can actually go through, and whilst I do agree they're based on realistic designs, I think the Oregon class, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not going to expand them too much to look at them, look like someone's tried to convert a Lexington class into a battleship.
Yep, sounds about right.
I hate it.
I agree.
I hate all of it. I've just realised that's what that is. I hate it.
Yes.
I hate it. I actually hate it. like it gets worse. Fleet suffers. Fleet suffers. I thought Drakestrom was bad enough already, but Fleet suffers.
I'm going to love whenever we get to the German stuff.
I've already seen the German stuff. I don't want to see it ever again, because it gave me eye cancer the last time I bloody looked at it. You know what? The first 2 things, the Hippers and the Scharnhorst, I can accept. Bismarck's,
so the original
I can accept them. But the rest of it, I'm going to lose my fucking marbles.
Nelsons were meant to be a comparative to Colorado and Nagato, which they apparently, quote, greatly exceeded. A comparative would be the Tosa. After that, you get the King George V laid down in 35, which is basically after the second disarmament conference, when all ships are now meant to be limited to 38,000 tons, because everyone, right? New rules, new ship limits, 38,000 tons. We're meant to be disarming now.
Yeah, this is after the mega Black...
Yeah,
the mega Wall Street crash?
Wall Street goes very badly wrong for everyone.
I would point out that Wall Street physically couldn't have gone any worse. That was
it can. If you include what other economic people have been doing economic policy wise, it can go worse. If you assume
the problem that you've got is that economics doesn't work that way. The Wall Street...
It's a shame I can't exactly recall all the perfect information at the moment.
The Wall Street crash was as bad as it could have possibly been. The reverberations of it were what hit everyone else.
Yeah, but what made it worse in this timeline was the US's government unwillingness or inability to take the steps required to start fixing it.
They didn't until
when
Roosevelt
the American
came in.
Yeah, what if you delay Fleet? What if he's not allowed to enact all his policies?
Yeah, what if you delay the New Deal by 6 years?
How? How do you delay the New Deal by 6 years? Because the American populace are going to be demanding it be fixed. They're not going to elect someone who says, I'm not going to fix this.
For the US, they might not necessarily try and fix it for everyone.
He doesn't try and fix it for everyone, though.
Yeah,
that's the point. He doesn't. He's not trying to fix it for everyone. He fixes it for the US. The rest, everyone else fixes it for themselves. So
this is the this timeline seems
I will have to double check stuff for it because the U.S. presidential elections of 1936 and 40 are the ones I'm not too familiar with. Because
even so, it's still
my least favorite bits of the book.
It's still just like
Yeah,
I
'cause
love
America,
seeing the
I looked
alternate.
into it. America continues to flirt with the gold standard instead,
Well, no, Britain
and try and
continues.
keep that. Yeah. And then the ability
Life is
to
pain.
leave the gold standard
Life is
also.
pain.
That's the American recovery. And because the American economy don't recover, the world economy recovers much slower.
Yeah, but that you're no, because America isn't the linchpin of the world economy at this point. It will be post World War II. It's a major part of the world economy, which is why its big collapse causes problems. But also, there's ripple that the way it ripples out causes issues, mainly because a lot of countries are dealing with the problems of they can't do what they traditionally do when they have economic problems. If you consider Britain, what's the British government's traditional first thing they do the moment they have economic issues?
Buy warships.
I actually have
Buy
the
warships.
tonnage numbers.
That's literally what the British do traditionally in any crisis.
See, if Drake's Drum had Britain start building warships early, that would be an excellent point for divergence. That would be an excellent point to have it diverge and say Britain.
If the British government were the ones who basically said no, we're not renewing the treaty in 1930 because because we need to build ships for our economy. Yeah,
that would be an excellent. And maybe at some point we'll do a video on that. So I'll do a ramblings on that because that's an interesting premise. Actually.
Interesting thing is, at that point, you could probably still get the 16.5-inch guns back,
which would be very.
I do
funny.
think it falls into the trap of the 16-inch gun. I agree.
Oh, completely.
That is one of my. I do wish they were using 16.5s because this is a big problem I have with the setting.
I have a lot of big problems with the setting. A lot of the
I at least managed to mostly treat it as what it is, but yes, I get what you mean as well.
The problem that I have is that I'm not the same person I was 2 to 3 years ago. 2 to 3 years ago, I really enjoyed alternate history, and I was happy to let things go off the rails. The more I've been asked to answer alternate history questions, the more I've been forced to look into the realities of actually answering the questions. The more I've had to actually look up things, the more skeptical and realism focused I have become. I am to the point now where I have zero tolerance for an alternate history that doesn't have some semblance of realism or practicality within its setting. And I like the ship designs in Drake's Drum. I like the pretty pictures, but that is all I like. The characters within the setting make decisions that make no sense. The nations, for example, why is Britain making different decisions at the Washington Conference? Why do they suddenly have more bargaining power to decide we want X, Y, Z?
Why do they have more bargaining power? Basically, because they came, from what I recall, they came out significantly ahead of everything in the end.
But
they completely crushed the German Navy. They brought the war not quite to an earlier close, but think of their overall naval power gone.
Even if the RN completely crushes the German Navy, in any battle that results in a major destruction of a portion of the High Seas Fleet, the RN is going to take losses. You do not fight a major dreadnought action like that without the RN suffering losses in return.
Oh, they did. The Battlecruiser Squadron in particular.
Well, in that case then, the whole not building any new ships for... As soon as the RN suffers losses, they are going to put holes in the water to replace losses.
And let's be honest, if they lost other battlecruisers, one of the big problems when they lose the battlecruisers, and this is the thing, is if they lose the battlecruisers but the battleships do better, and they're looking at it as going, oh, it's the arm-penetrating shells, etc., they might well go with the fast battleship idea, which they'd already experimented with the Queen Elizabeth class. So it might not be the British have battlecruisers, they might have fast battleships. If they're doing that anyway, then who knows what you're looking at. The moment British start looking at fast battleships and battleship designs, it's when they start pushing the triple turrets, So the ships you could see coming afterwards could be 12, 15-gun ships with 30 knots of speed, which is not impossible for the Royal Navy to be building in 1918 if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's like I like.
You have Endeavour herself
And
is
it
laid
could
down.
be it could be 15, 16.5-inch guns.
Like, if the RN has lost a large chunk of the battlecruiser squadron, you're not gonna have the fiddling with the admirals that you have
Well, right.
historically.
The thing is,
admirals
you
are
have-
going
I mean,
down. We
thing is-
need
Right,
the replacement.
You also
hulls.
got to count. There's also a bit of a difference
But
here.
if the counter fleet is even in worse succession, so the Germans don't have any battle cruisers left.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The Germans aren't the only threat
I would
to
also
Royal
argue,
naval supremacy.
yes, the
And the
Battlecruiser squadron had lost a number of ships, but these are mostly the old one. On the other hand, they do actually have a couple of other ships that are better. You have Canada. HMS Canada is in the 4 or 14-inch role and managed to do quite well. You've also got New Zealand, which is another 15-inch armed fast battleship, I believe, which was serving it along the line with them.
How did the New Zealanders afford that one? I know they.
I'm pretty sure
I
that
know they stuffed
the
up the cash.
In
for
which
an
case, that
Invincible.
suggests to me you're gonna definitely get a fast battleship scenario, and I am going to go get some my food
Yes,
now.
get
but
food.
I
it's been
completely
lovely fun.
agree.
But I really do think fast battleships are where they would have headed off. Take care. Lovely
Yeah.
as always to join you. Hope you
care.
enjoyed. Take care.
Take care, Dr. Clark.
Bye.
Goodbye. Sorry for torturing
have a good
you.
evening.
Bye.
I'm being tortured myself. Well, I think right. It's 9 o'clock. That's been
Yeah.
a good 4 hours. I'm gonna end that here. Thanks
He's
very
running
much
away.
for I am. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope I haven't.
I'll try and
ruined-
actually get some more information for next time. In
Yeah, I
case
hope I
do
haven't.
anything
I
else.
hope I haven't ruined Dr. Clark at this point.
Oh, apparently, Teddy Roosevelt, no clue.
That'll have to wait till next time, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But I obviously, like I said, I can't answer everything. And this is Fleet's random ramblings.
stick
I
back.
I see. Like, I like to answer questions, but if we get on a good tangent, we're going off on the tangent, and the questions take
Makes
a back
sense.
seat until the taction is. Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. Take care, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.